Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we're going to be talking about Sins of the Fire by Phoenix Ward. This is a debut novel. It is a fantasy, if you can't tell, with a dragon on the cover. And so we're going to get into a full breakdown of this. Before we get started, though, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through Lemoy, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt, you write a short story using that prompt, and on the first Monday video of the month, we bask in your creativity. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out. If you submit the first chapter and the cover, that chapter will be read here on the channel with no opinion related to it, and hopefully readers who are looking for what you've made will listen and go and get the rest of that beautiful free sample. Well, the free sample was here, but they'll go get the rest of it to see what happens next. The third way is Crit This, which is a new series here where if you have a story and you're an unpublished author, or the story is just unpublished in general and you want feedback on it, if you submit to that, then I will give feedback chapter by chapter based on what you submit. All of the rules are in that area for submission. And then this book was actually asked by the author for me to read it. And so if you want your book done in that way, there's also a link to submit books to recommend that I read, and I'll pick from those when I am picking a book. And the third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books to judge me, because, you know, he who judges, he better prepare to be judged. And I am. But if you would like to check out any of my books to see, am I even whatever, probably not, but I'm still a consumer regardless of whether I can write for myself or not. But if you would like to check any of them out, they're available at any of your favorite places to get books. With that said, let's jump into this. It's clear from the very opening of this book, even after the preface, but in the prologue, that the author is very passionate about their work and their characters. The prologue already reads as though the author loves their characters and brings with it this crazy passion for the story that they're about to tell. Now, that passion can translate to readers, so many of them will just have a good time seeing how the author had a great time. Like Fourth Wing, the author obviously had a great time with their characters, and so did a bunch of readers. Or it cannot click with the wrong readers. For me, it didn't work for me, but I can see why it is so passionate about these characters. And for lack of, I'm going to try to be delicate about this in the best way that I possibly can. This is my reader opinion as somebody who went through this book. This book feels like a self-insert character, a self-insert fantasy, and something of a fantasy journal from going through college at that time. And this is just an assumption, so I'm not putting it on the author. I don't want to put it on the author, and again, I'm trying to be very delicate with this. I am separating the character from the author. So when I'm talking about the book and I'm talking about the character, then I'm talking about the crafting of the character and how I read it. But I can see why the author would be so passionate about their character if it is in fact a self-insert of a sort. And that's all that I want to say on that. There's nothing inherently wrong with self-inserts. There's nothing inherently wrong with expressing yourself or experimenting or investigating yourself in different ways or parts of yourselves, experiences, coping with yourself through fiction. It is a different audience, though, as often I would suggest if it is a personal journal, then it is not necessarily the same as commercial fiction, but this also appeals to a lot of people, and I'm not a fantasy reader, so take that as you will. But that is, I understand why one would be very passionate about a story if it is in fact a self-insert. That also makes it a bit harder to critique, because often if it is a self-insert, then some authors can take it more personally when you criticize the character, since the character is a version of them. And that's something that I wanted to be sure to discuss at the start of this, to know that I am discussing the character, whether or not they are a self-insert, and I don't want it to be taken personally as we discuss the story here. So with that said, I know so many prefaces, but I just want to be clear. With that said, let's jump into the book. The novel opens with a prologue from seemingly the dragon's perspective, as he or she looks upon a wounded human and considers trading their life for the benefit of the human so that they can become the human's weapon. Quote, "My heart shuddered. It would hurt. I would die, yet I would live. What would happen to my body? Would my heart sit in silence, left to rot in its empty temple? Would my flesh be torn away with my spirit?" Again, I looked towards the human. His gaze held mine, though twisted and bloated. He held me in their comfort. He did not need to reassure me with words nor tender touch. This is acceptable. And so the dragon accepts her fate. We'll later learn that the dragon is female. I don't know about emotional readers. I'm not an emotional reader, so this sort of opening really doesn't do anything for me. I'm not invested in the characters yet, so I don't really care about their sacrifice, or the sacrifice being made, or the narration talking about how many feelings the characters are having at that time. But I also know that I'm a fairly detached reader, and I'm just trying to like get a sense of things. So emotional appeals don't really work for me. Let me know how you feel about emotional openings that kind of try to appeal to your feelings first to sort of pull you in to get you attached with strong feelings or strong emotional moments before you know the characters. Personally, I think that they lack impact for me when the reader doesn't have an emotional connection or isn't trying to read books in that way. But if somebody is the sort of insert character reader as opposed to like the observy reader, then it may work more, because there are different ways to read books that also make the book work better or worse depending on the type of reader they are. And then there's this odd complete change with the vibe of chapter 1 from this emotional high with dragons and fantasy elements to a college student. And I want to recommend going back to the video I did a couple weeks ago that was about openings and how it is a promise to the reader based on what elements you put in there. And so doing an opening that is such in contrast to the mood and the story can come off as a lie to the readers. But again, let me know what you feel about prologues that are a complete mismatch in mood and writing and setting even from the rest of the book. Then chapter 1 for the vibes, I'm going to read the first page for you. Quote, 8:30 a.m. The ping of my cell phone reminded me that I had to get to my morning lecture that I was already headed to. I quickly dismissed the message before I reached the sea of students blocking the campus entryway. To the left, a cluster of computer science majors clutching MacBooks and sling bags worn over loose, untucked shirts, pooled into the College of Engineering. The art students, in their most wild clothing or anime apparel, flowed in neatly into the School of Art to the right. I was but a lone paddle boat in the ocean of bodies. The big boat of those smart sailors of engineering were all braving the waters just fine with their glasses and physics shirts. The art students stayed out of the way. Little boats to the upper-class cruise liners. Here I was in a polo shirt and khakis, a tugboat compared to these smart dummies. I'd pass off as an art student if it weren't for my plain looks. I had to brave the waves to make it to the School of Education, but first I would need to make it to the Bell Square. Then it'd be a brisk walk across the square, past the College of Business and the John M. Anderson Library, across the road to 20th Street. Bell Square was my island respite. But no matter how many times I went through the rough waters, I still got caught up in the waves. Maybe if I was a little bit more imposing, I'd glare my way through. When are you going to go to the gym again, by the way? Floating questions buzzed in my head like flies. I had put on a little weight after the second year here, or maybe it was earlier than that. Anyway, I dismissed the idea of going back to the gym. Too much studying to do. As I braved the riptides of student bodies, the winds carried the loud sermons of someone with a megaphone. No, it wasn't a sermon. It sounded like a rap. I was tall, but not enough to see beyond the archways leading into the square, the island of sight. I stood on my toes, looking over the myriad of bowed heads and chatting students, ears trained to the noise but my eyes found in the old man in a hoodie, talking into a shirt in the grass right next to the library. The guy was white and looked about 60. Beside him was a speaker that played a deep droning beat. The sound of the beat overpowered his soft voice, but the lyrics were clear enough. Jesus the Savior, the light in the dark, guiding our souls, leaving his mark. With every step he showed the way. Jesus Christ, our hope every day. So, a couple of things about this. Number one, this is his third year in this, and he's never seen this guy on campus before, like, at all. It's even the finals, and you're going to tell me that this guy has never been there, that he's, like, actually surprised. I also have a hard time finding that it is this crowded everywhere when it's just a normal school day. Maybe some other universities are actually so bustling crazy, but because of the class schedules usually being staggered, they didn't, as far as I know, the walkways and everything were not usually the same as in like high schools where you have people literally going between classes all at the same time, the entire school doing it. So his whole trying to push through all of these people, and also the only way that he can think of getting through people is by being threatening and imposing, it's a choice. It's a choice that speaks to this character in that he feels like the only way to be seen is to be aggressive. It also there are some strange assumptions here about different students. Like, somehow art students are not imposing in some way, when art students, I mean, they can also be quiet, but you've also got the theater kids who are usually, they're not going to be afraid of the engineering students or whatever, or programming students. I don't know. There are just some assumptions that it's like, if you're artsy, then you're mousy, and you're like... But after walking around campus, this main character's name is Kane, by the way. Kane meets with his friend Imani. He zones out while she is talking and introduces us to what's likely to be a big character thing for him, his anxiety. Quote, "Dude, you were staring off into space. Don't think that I didn't notice." Imani crossed her arms as she walked, sticking out her lips as she looked at me up and down. "Come on, I've been studying this stuff to help other people. Least I can do is help you." "Sure, but you're going to be helping people that have, like, bigger, more serious problems than me. This is just a little test anxiety. Test anxiety is still anxiety." She dropped her tone down to her therapist voice, knowingly playful with her demeanor. "What are you thinking about?" Sighing, I rubbed my temples. Did she need to know? If she considered this practice for her own skills, would she even see my worry? She watched my face contort before I eventually relented. "I don't know what I'm doing, and I feel like I'm just coasting through life. I see all of these cool things and think, wow, that's neat, and I keep moving. I'm afraid that I'm making bad choices, or no choices." Shaking my head, I finally looked up from the ground, face to face with my friend. "I feel like I'm wasting time." Imani nodded. "Where does this feeling stem from?" I searched for the right answer and shrugged. "Personal pride, family expectation, probably the latter. And they expect you to do my best. But what if my best isn't..." The way that this is introduced suggests that anxiety will play a role in the narrative, and also this expectation of his family. But his family isn't even like, we need you to go and become a lawyer or become a doctor or become the best teacher that has ever happened and then go to your school that you went to before and fix it. They're just like, do your best. So they're a typical supportive family, and he's got anxiety about just having a supportive family in general because they'll be let down. Now, another big character thing for this character is going to be his saying that he doesn't make decisions for himself, and he's just kind of floating through life, because the dragon that he eventually gets is going to continuously harass him about not making decisions. But he is making decisions, and he is pursuing an education in a subject that he is interested in. And so I don't necessarily think that this chose the right things to be panicked about. I think if his family had, like, said, you need to go to school, at least get your associate's degree, even if you don't know what you want to do yet, but at least get an associate's degree, and while you're getting the 2-year degree, you can figure out what else you want to do, or we're going to send you to the military. Like, have the family be making decisions for him, so then he can build his character into making decisions for himself when he fails his classes and decides, maybe school isn't where I want to be, because that would play into this idea of him just floating through life and it all feels pointless, but we don't see that in him. He is making decisions, and he is pursuing something that he thinks is worthwhile because he wants to have a positive impact on people, and he believes this is the way to do it. He'll say that later too, is that he wants to be a teacher. So he is actively making decisions to get him where he wants to be, which also means that Imani should, if she's a therapist in training, she should be calling him out on his false sense of self, where he doesn't even see that he is making choices to get him where he wants to go. He's kind of in a delusional state then. The conversation continues with, quote, "She walked up to me and bumped me with her hip." Deep breaths, Cain. Reward your success and forgive your shortcomings. Don't be so hard on yourself, okay? I gave a weak but genuine grin. I'll try. Eventually, he gets to class, which is at the School of Education. I'm not totally sure what he's studying at this point or what he wants either, because he's not really bringing you into it, though it looks like he wants to be a teacher. We also don't have much of an idea of where the story is going to go outside of it suggesting some religious elements with a random religious guy at the very beginning, because that's such an odd thing to throw in randomly. So there's probably going to be some religious something that guy is related to. Also, the fact that the preface mentioned Christianity and Catholicism in a way that suggested argumentation. That, and that Cain is dealing with his anxiety, seem to be the main things that this book is going to be about. But as far as chapter 1 goes, we really don't have a trajectory of what this character is doing or what he wants, thus giving the book a more slice of life feeling and opening that is hard to categorize outside of just, it's happening. It's just happening. He doesn't want for anything, he's just happening and existing. Cain and Imani then practice questions for childhood education class before going to take their final exam. This chapter goes through a bunch of different questions that are on the test, and it'll do it again later when he retakes this test, such as, quote, which of the following is not a characteristic of authoritative parenting? Authoritative, an easy answer. Strict discipline and rules. The rest of the answers were authoritarian. This much was easy to understand. 10. According to Paget's theory of cognitive development, during which stage do children develop object permanence? And as he is taking this test, he is also going through anxiety. Quote, which of the following is a key feature of the social learning theory proposed by Albert Bandura? Albert who? Who the hell was Albert Bandura? When did we talk about him? I tried to remember. There was one instance where we discussed his theories, but that was a passing remark in class. I shot glances around my seat. Students beside me were hard at work. No one expressed anything from what I could see. How the hell was I supposed to answer that? We barely spent any time on that subject. My palms shot to my forehead, massaging my temples. Fine, I just guess on that one and the next. I circled whatever answer sounded right. My knee bounced under the table as I looked at the next few questions. One discussed another of Erik Erikson's theories of identity. Another asked about the methodology of diagnosing autism. The more I read the questions, the more I felt them beginning to slip away. Stuck on another section of the test, I tried to think as hard as I could on the appropriate answers. When he's done angsting over his test, he anguishes over having to hand it over. Quote, the fear began bubbling in my stomach. I had to make guesses. Turning my paper back to the first page, I circled the answers that I felt were right. My gut instincts guided me through whatever responses I had left. By the time I finished, there were only 20 minutes left on the clock. It was enough time to double check, yet my leg and my head felt fuzzy. The answers sounded right in my head. Reading them over was another thing. I didn't want to go back and look over the answers with how sudden exhaustion hit me. I gave a quick glance over at my answers as I stood up. These all looked right. I thought logically about all of them. I could be walking away with at least a B. Each step toward the professor made me want to double back and review my work. Peripheral vision caught the test of the students still working. I couldn't make out their answers, but they looked like they took their time. Maybe I should go back. No, I got them. These look right. You sure? I got this. I'll pass for sure. You're absolutely sure. Worst case scenario, I got a C. I got to the desk and I froze right in front of the aide, looking at my paper again. She waited for me to set the paper in front of her. Turn it in. Not yet. Turn it in. So he takes up most of the time taking the test, and he's like, they're all taking their time. Bro, you took your time too. It's fair. After they finish the test, they go out to eat, where they tease each other, him and Imani, over video game waifus, and Cain says that he has no money to go on vacation while Imani is going to Las Vegas. Oh yeah, BT dubs. They both love dragons, and both of their waifus are dragons. Cain is on his way home and he takes the train while using an instant messenger with his friends, probably Discord if this was written in the recent past. He's interrupted by a little kid running around the train station and whom he helps get back to his mother. She compliments him on how he'll be such a good teacher for kids because he is so caring. And he goes back to his chat and tells tells everybody that he saved a kid and that the mom was super grateful, and he just feels really good about himself. She tells him, he goes home and tells his mom the exact same thing, and that he helped save this kid, and his mom is like, you need to not yell at white kids, even if you're trying to save them, because that's going to be misconstrued and you're going to get in trouble. So never yell at white kids, even if their life is on the line. They also talk about finals and his fear in answering questions. Then it's off to tour his neighborhood, from the dog that he always greets as he's thinking about paying for college by jaywalking and suing when he gets run over. I'm not joking. Quote, I walked off, looking left and right before crossing the street. I didn't have the protection of the signs, but if I was lucky and someone was texting while driving, the rest of college would be paid for, at risk of my own injuries, though. He gets home and talks to his mom some more, then goes upstairs to check his grades. I don't know how much time has passed since he took the test, because he did head home, but it seems like he lives within travel distance, within just, like in the same town as his family, though he lives in the dorms. So it feels like same day, and he's expecting the grades on the same day, but I would have expected finals to not necessarily be on the same day when they're paper finals. But he's talking about living in the dorms. Well, he has also just got on the metro to head home, so I'm not really sure if he is supposed to live far from home or if he lives close in the same town, but is just living in the dorms for the experience. But if he's worried about money, then I feel like it would make more sense for him to have lived at home. We never really get an explanation for that, so it just exists that way. But when he goes to check his grades when he gets home, he's already received them, despite saying that some of them would take forever to actually get in there. He complained about them taking forever. All of it is generally good, but math is a C and educational psychology is a D. So get ready for the spiral, because he is feeling like he's going to fail. He's panicking, trying to figure out how in the frick he got a D, and goes over the data. Quote, I got most of the questions right? Checking over the data and information was sound. The paper that I wrote were all 80% to 90% range. Test scores rose and fell like waves, the lowest being the second quiz on prenatal development. Discussion boards were all turned in, most having positive scores, save for the one that I missed the deadline for, and I scrolled all the way down. My score for the final test was 63%, leaving me with a final score of 67, a D. If this is true, if he got a 63 on the final exam and it brought his grades down despite getting A's and B's on almost everything else, then that means that his final grade is 80% or more of his overall grade in general. That seems ridiculous. And it also seems, if that were the case, he would know how heavily the final would be graded, because professors in university put on the rubric how things are weighted in your final grade. So it doesn't really make sense that it would be that. So he is either misrepresenting what all of his other grades in that class were, and it was actually already a C, or this just doesn't make sense. And it was just like, oh, he needed a final grade that was this and dropped it. But this could have just been solved by him knowing that the final grade was super important and that it would crash his score. Maybe it even could have been like 50%. I know that saying 80% is probably an exaggeration, but still. I'm not going to say that teachers haven't done that. I've had teachers actually that all of their grades were entirely on the tests, which meant that kids could skip class and then just show up on test days. And that's what the teacher said on day 1 too. Is she was like, I remember this because it was Theater 101 was one of those classes. And she was like, look, I'm just going to cover in class what is also in the book. So if you don't want to come to class, just read the book and show up on test days and you'll be fine. If you don't want to read the book, then just show up to class and you won't have to read the book, whatever. But all of the grades are from only the quizzes and the tests. Well, they're only from the tests, and there are going to be 3 tests, and then you can do an optional project thing. So it can happen, but this professor was basically like, you don't need to be in class to ace this class, because you just got to ace the final exam, but then also put things on the exam that he only mentioned in class. Theoretically, you could actually just search term. Are you telling me that this guy also did not prepare what was what are they called? I haven't been in school for so long. Where they basically tell you, like, these subjects could be on the final. like a study sheet, something like that, because I'm pretty sure every one of my undergraduate classes had study sheets for the finals, which just pretty much covered everything that was ever mentioned in class and was like, here's a phrase, here's a phrase, here's a phrase, here's a phrase. Just make sure you're familiar with all of these because any of them could pop up on the final. I don't know. I think Kane is just not ready for school if this is it, but it just sounds like, I don't know. I don't know if he's unreliable or if the teacher is just not good. Quote, I searched everywhere for the answers, the assignments, the discussions boards. If I turned in the one I forgot to do, wouldn't that put me toward a C? I looked up calculations for final grades, trying to add everything up. Percentages were put in place based on the work that I put in, yet the numbers didn't change at all. I studied so hard to get there. And this was the result? How did I score so low? I closed my laptop, covering my hands over my face. This wasn't happening. There was no way that this was happening. I didn't fail. I did not fail. Dr. Gannon was fair. He would even remove the lowest test score to better everyone's grade. The lowest probably wasn't dropped. That's it. Maybe he forgot and sent the grade out before he dropped the test. Switching to tab into the email, I wrote a quick message to the professor. So if he got a 63 on this final exam and that was the lowest score that he got, it would have been dropped and his grade would have raised, which means he had a test in the past of this semester that was worse than 50%. And for some reason, he thinks that he should get a higher grade. It doesn't sound like he is actually committing to this class at all. I don't know how he thinks he could get an A or a B. I think that's just him protecting his ego, honestly. But something here is just not adding up. Maybe Kane wasn't paying attention to his grades all semester because he's anxious. That's not the first time that it has happened. But this isn't even a high-level class. This is a 100-level class. His mom comes into his room and sees that he is moody after he's emailed his teacher to see if his teacher hadn't fully input all of the grades yet. I don't know how he bombed a 100-level class this hard if he turned in all of his assignments and his teacher was so gracious as he says he is. He gets into a fight with his mom over his grades because she's the one paying for his college and he's failing and he doesn't know if he is cut out for this. Quote, she stared at me hard, her nostrils flaring with each breath that she took. What is the problem? You weren't like this last term, so what's going on now? Are you actually trying? Because we're the ones spending money on this. Yes, I tried. My voice wavered, finding the best tone to conclude this diatribe. It's just another stupid test. I'm tired of these tests. I'm tired of studying, and I'm tired of doing all of this just to feel like I'm failing anyway. Mom's expression didn't change. She processed the words, then shook her head as if she were tossing them aside. Why? It's hard? I hate tests! The anger was building again. Rein it back in. I put my hands to my head. I can't take these tests. If it was just a final paper, it'd be fine. But when it's a test, I can't ever get it right. I don't know if something's wrong with me or if I just suck at test taking. It was even multi-choice test taking. I'm sorry, that's like the easiest version. Eventually, Mom says that if he is going to quit school, then he needs to go and get a job. So figure out what you want to do next semester because she doesn't want to see another failing semester. He has 1 year left of college, but he needs to pick what he is doing. That's 1 year left of college if you pass all of your classes and don't have to like retake anything. So I don't know how she's saying you've only got 1 year left. He could have more than 1 year left. I think just one of the girls I went to school with was in there for like 7 or 8 years by the time that I had actually been there for 1 or 2 years. But that was because, I don't think that was because she was like not passing her classes. She was just like, I don't know, doing a lot of other things. I think she was double majoring too, but she was still just lollygagging, I think. Kane angsts more about his grades and feeling like a failure. Quote, I squeezed my eyes and grumbled. Hands went to my head. If I could just shut my brain up for 5 seconds, maybe I'd come to a decision quicker. Maybe if I wasn't so worried about failing, I'd be less of a disappointment. It's money that shouldn't be spent. It's time wasted. How does someone pass off their anger and leave it like that? How would a normal person take that? He checks his email to see if he's got a response from the teacher or the TA, and they go, yep, you got a D. That is the final grade. The course is being offered in the spring, so take it again. Now, I don't think you actually have to take it again if it's a D, unless it's a prerequisite for another class. Then, yeah, but a D is still a passing grade, at least in the United States, which he is in. Kane's mom forces him out of the house so that he'll stop moping because that's all that he's doing. Instead, he mopes and angsts about what to do with school and grades as he walks around the neighborhood. All I gotta say is, don't worry, bro. You'll go through worse in your young life than a single D in a 100-level college class. Like, that's easily fixable. It's a growing moment, if anything, but bless you for your innocence that this is the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. Eventually, while wandering around, he finds an odd-looking golden pen and can't decide if it's ancient or some kind of artsy prop that somebody had dropped and left behind. He sends a picture of it to his friends and then takes it home with him. Kane gets home and he sits down to dinner with his family where his parents confront him about getting a D. Like, this is all happening on the same exact night and also the same day that he actually just took the test. Didn't they already talk to him about the D? And his mom is like, I'm going to talk about the D again, but this time in front of your father because he knows a thing or two about the D's, if you know what I'm saying. They make sure that he knows that college costs money as if they didn't already do that and says, well, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, so you know this is hard, right? His parents don't seem to understand him or put any effort into trying to. I also guess that their suggestion that he gets a job if he doesn't want to pursue college was just talk earlier because now they're like, we're going to have a real conversation and you're not dropping out of college. Stop being a sissy. Which I can get where his anxiety is coming from as he, has failure anxiety with his family being like, you're going back, don't you dare fail again, or else you're wasting our money. That is the pressure that he is putting on himself. That is the pressure that his parents are putting on him, and then he is repeating in his head with his anxiety. He also shares the pen that he found with them and tells them that it's not plastic so they can get it appraised and see what it's worth. Big point being, all discussions are made for him instead of him actually engaging in them. Kane internally panics about his failure and swears at his parents for saying what they said to him. His parents are watching the news then, saying something is wrong with the youths. People on TV are demanding that lawmakers do something to fix the youth crime problem, while Kane's parents are like, who are these morons? Quote, I really wish lawmakers and the police would do something about this, the interviewee toting a morning hair bun said. These kids need engagement to keep them off the street. A scoff and a groan followed. Who are they interviewing? My mother exclaimed. A bunch of morons, my dad responded. I ate, listening loosely to their conversation. My dad went on and on about problems, saying how it'd be better if idiots were tossed into a remote island on their own. My mom added little points here and there, but ultimately let things pass. I kept quiet. I wanted to point out the nuances, little issues in Dad's statements, but it was best if I didn't engage in something that I had little information about. I'd rather not look like an idiot. I filled my mouth with turkey loaf, staring at the pen. This is where the pen obsession starts, my guys. You thought that I was joking when I said he won't put the pen down? We're gonna be stroking the pen, we're gonna be sniffing the pen, we're gonna be licking the pen. Maybe not, but we're thinking about it. He's lost in thought about the pen until his mom finally comes and interrupts him. Quote, the name call was direct, firm. Mom had called me earlier. Looking up immediately, I straightened myself in my chair. Yes, sorry, lost in thought. About what? She asked with the assumption that something might be wrong. Something might be wrong? You've lectured him twice today, Missy. What do you think might be wrong? He's upset. Do you know your son at all? That is the question now. The pen. I stuck my fork into my food, cramming another piece of loaf into my mouth. Mom gave me a knowing smile as I swallowed. What else? I avoided looking at her directly. Just messing up. You just gotta fix it. That's all. We're gonna be proud of you either way. But you just have to start fixing all of this. She gestured to her head, waving her hand around it. I struggle with it too still. You just can't think you know everything, and you certainly can't give up when you mess up the first time. Or the third time, Dad chimed in. Pay attention. That's all we ask of you. The weight in my head lifted somewhat. Yeah, they were right. I gave them a nod. They were disappointed, but only for a little bit. I could feel a little better. Oh, also, hold that thought, Kane. I was thinking, and you do whatever you want, you're grown, but you should keep that somewhere safe. Yeah, Dad chimed in again as if he had come up with the idea. Leave it here when you go back to school. I felt like I had some freedom to choose, but when my mother said, you can do whatever you want, you're grown, that was code for, do what I suggest, it's better that way. I knew that she meant well, but With how logical their suggestions were, the conversation felt like a dialogue tree in a video game where both options would net the same result. I nodded without much choice. So, like, all within the span of 6-7 chapters, where it's all in the same day, basically, they lectured him twice about never failing, not wasting their money, but at the same time, they were also just like, hey, we're proud of you regardless of what you do. If you fail, you can get up and fix it again. So why were we being the way that we were if we were just going to say that everything is fine and he doesn't need to worry about it? It feels like he's supposed to have good parents, but also the parents are supposed to be overbearing and cause part of his anxiety issue, but it's kind of more not sure what it wants to commit to yet, and so it's playing both sides of it. The conversation just came off as weird to me and indecisive. Kane returns to his room and his friends are texting him about the pen, and they angst about school together as some of his other friends also dread school, it seems. The encouragement from Kane's friends makes him feel nothing, though. Quote, I watched the chat scroll up with words of affirmation. They were supposed to be reassuring. I was supposed to feel better. It didn't feel like their words were really meaningful. The way that they all pat my back, all while none of them really made any progress, felt belittling. I didn't want to say that to them, but I couldn't help but feel sour. I didn't want to feel this way. Well, he doesn't feel anything but resentment. Then he goes to bed. Kane is off to school again. His parents make sure that he's got everything on him, including pepper spray, and show him how to use it for the first time, apparently. So it's his 3rd semester, and they're randomly sending him to school now with pepper spray. I get that it's like, hey, crime, children, crime. But also, I don't think he ever uses that pepper spray, so I'm not entirely sure why they gave him pepper spray. He's about 20, and he's been going to school since he was 18, but now is the time that they give him pepper spray. Kane also decides to take the pen with him against his family's wishes because he is allowed to make decisions that he wants with his things. He is still wondering what the pen is, if it's a prop, if it's real, where it came from, why it is the way that it is. But my assumption was this is the end of winter break, and he has done nothing to look into the pen the entire time that he has been on winter break. He's annoyed at school starting, doesn't want to go back there, hates everything about freaking going to school, which makes it even more amazing that he wants to go into education, because, like, you hate school, but you want to have your entire career be at school? Is it just the fact that you're a student that you hate, not actually the school environment? Because as a teacher, you're going to be administering tests and then grading tests. He fidgets with his pen and just keeps going, it's got gold and jewels on it, and so playing with it would get it stolen, but I can't stop touching it. Just get out a normal clicky pen for your thoughts, my guy, to just, like, get your thought fingers going. He's texting his friend Imani again, and she meets up with him. When she tries to sneak up behind him, he dodges with lightning reflexes, confusing the both of them with how exactly he did that and how she saw him coming. They continue their way into the bookstore together. The bookstore is crowded, and he finds most of the books that he needs for his class, while he is panicking that if he can't find some of them, he can't pirate them because he can't fail his classes again, and also hates the book organization as they just are thrown around, and there is just too much to even start looking at. While panicking, he hears a different voice in his head, and he doesn't recognize it and is concerned, but he keeps on getting his books. There are so many ways around this in the modern age. I can't remember the times that I went and got my books at the school bookstore because I could buy them online. You can even rent them nowadays. But his idea that, well, I can't pirate them because I don't want to fail. I'm not going to say No, you can pirate them. They're easy enough to find. You don't actually have to run into a website with a sleazy porno button that you have to click and you may or may not get a virus. A lot of books, especially school books, are fairly easy to find nowadays. Despite some people's best efforts. I'm just saying. It's there. But your mom is the one paying for the books. So, like, it's not like you're talking about student loans or on a budget. Your mom's paying for everything. I mean, your mom's budget, but still. Quote, a sigh of relief came as soon as we left the bookstore with everything we needed in tow, save for whatever books we decided to get later. The whole ordeal made me wonder how the average person would be able to function in such a tight setting like that. This makes me wonder more why he didn't buy his books online before school even started, because you don't have to wait until the first day of school to buy your books, and you don't have to buy them from the bookstore. You can find them on Amazon, on eBay, on Craigslist, or any other variation of where somebody in your area might list their books from last semester and then get them beforehand. But used bookstores, there are so many options that you don't actually have to go to the bookstore at the university especially if it causes you to have a panic attack. I also think that just waiting until the first day of school to then go buy all of your books is also playing with fire. But what do I know? If he's serious about not getting another D, you would think that he would be prepared beforehand, but he soon says that he normally pushes off the bookstore until a week in so that because he doesn't obviously like it. It just adds question after question as to why he didn't get in sooner. I'm trying to be considerate here that he's just a college student, so maybe he's not like that forward thinking, but like at the same time, I was 18 and 17 and 19 and 20 going to college, and I didn't struggle with figuring out different ways to get books from the bookstore. He's also going, quote, "From my roughed up bag, I pulled out a 400-page book that I had from last year, completely spotless. I never really read through the physical copy since Mr. Gannon used more supplemental material than the material from the textbook. Had I known, I wouldn't have dropped the money for it. I would have sold it, too, if the sell price wasn't $5 compared to the $200 price tag that I bought it at. The more I think about it, the college really sucks. You can definitely sell it for more than $5 if you just like put it on Marketplace or something and be like, hey, used, done. Don't sell it back to the bookstore. That's a scam." But he's in his third year of college. These things aren't hard to figure out. I figured them out immediately. So it just makes me go, how is that your first D? How? I don't want to be mean, but how is that your first D? Kane goes to his dorm room where he meets his stoner roommate for the first time, and then he goes to class where he panics over not bringing a pencil to class. You were just at the school bookstore and you didn't buy a pack of pencils? So he has to ask someone for help, and he's like, oh no, I can't ask somebody to loan me a pencil because I'll look like such a failure and a loser. I didn't bring a pencil to class. For how much he thinks about this stuff, you would think he would have some part of it. I'm not trying to be mean. It's like when you are panicking about everything, you can overlook things so easily, and I understand that. I'm just like, this is your third year. You understand you have these problems. Your parents made sure that you had pepper spray, but didn't make sure that you had pencils. Where are the priorities here? Kane tries to, I wouldn't even be asking this if the story was like moving faster. I just have to be like, this is what I'm having to pay attention to right now. Kane tries to use his only pen on his book, and he drags it across the page, but nothing comes out because he's got, his dragon pen. Suddenly, he and the entire class hear this loud scream, don't know what it is, and he continues on. The book being written on is bifurcated, and the desk underneath it is carved because of the pen that he was using on the book. After class, he's messing around with the pen, trying to get us to slice again, or something, when it speaks to him. It freaks him out. It calls him a wielder while saying, it's good to finally meet you. She's gonna regret saying that because she thinks he's a loser. She does. The pen starts talking to Kane. It introduces itself, but then insults him as being a cowardly worm, and she wants a better wielder than him. She says that she is a dragon and changes form for her wielder. I thought that this was going to be some kind of like soul binding thing, like happening in the family, and so he was chosen, and so she didn't really have a choice, but it doesn't seem like there is anything like that. It just seems like he was lucky enough to find it, and he could just re-gifted and somebody else could become her wielder. He kind of just goes along with what it is saying to him and asking of him, and asks if he is ready to take up the mantle as her wielder, and he is like, yeah, but doesn't ask what that means. Then the dragon stops talking to him when she realizes what a loser he is, which makes Kane angry. Quote, hello, dragon? Mishra? Miss Sarah? The pen didn't say anything else. I finally sat myself down on the edge of my bed. I didn't imagine that happening. That was real. A talking pen? A talking dragon pen? What did she say? Timid? Meek? Worm? She was right. But she had no right saying that so matter-of-factly. And to just stop contact with me after failing to explain what she even was or where she came from was absolutely disrespectful. Who was she to make judgments on my character? Hey! I shouted at the pen, shaking it roughly. Hey! The hell do you think you are? You think that you could just insult me and dip? Say something, damn it! His roommate comes in, interrupting the interrogation of said Pendragon, and is pretty much, that's where it ends, as he has to go to class, and he mentally spirals again over what just happened, how it could happen, and is he just crazy? More at 11. Kane's going to class and panicking obsessively about the pen now, and you might see that he is panicking a lot, and I feel like I need to say he's panicking so you know how much of this book is him spiraling in thought that he's already spiraled in. A majority of the book is what it is. So he's like spiraling on what he needs to do with this book. Now, he runs into one of the religious people who hangs out in the quads rapping all day, and the dude invites Kane to come to an event at his church. Don't do it, you know, it's a cult when they say, hey, come for lunch, it's free. I'm not stereotyping here. I'm looking at some of you. He gives Kane a secret card and also says, you're carrying around a lot of sin, bro. A lot of sin. That's not really going to become relevant to anything. The title of this book just gets more confusing the longer the book goes on, because I'm not sure what the relevance of the title is to the rest of the book. Because what are the sins of the fire? Like, if the sins of the fire are the fact that the dragons were attacking the Crusaders, and so the Crusaders attacked the dragons back and wiped a lot of them out, like, I guess the sins of the fire are you went to war with the Crusaders and the Crusaders wiped you out. I'm not joking, that's where we're going. So after talking to this religious guy, Kane is shook. I'm sure it is not the first time that he has ever been told he is full of sin, but this has shook him. And he doesn't hear his friend Imani calling him until she drags him off. She asks him why he looks so spooked, and eventually he mentions that guy's words, but he is too afraid to mention the pen. Imani delivers him to class because he seems a little bit out of himself. In class, Kane is trying to get his pen to work while the class is going on. He says that he needs to figure out how to make it work because it's integral to his life now, and I have no idea why he thinks that is. We have no basis for why this pin would be considered important to him. All it's done is talk, and so, like, he's put a huge value on it, but for no apparent reason. The class then is playing two truths and a lie when he thinks so hard that the dragon responds and makes him panic again. So, like, he's spiraling, and the pen is like, oh my gosh, shut up. Embarrassed, he runs to the bathroom to talk to her, where she says how displeased she is with him and wants a different wielder. Is that really how it works? Yes, it is, because we have no reason for why she is tied to him. So, like I said, it can just do whatever. Kane overthinks about what to do with the pen and thinks that maybe he should really just give it to someone else. But how would you even go about doing that? Bro, you just drop it. The same way that you found it, you just drop it in a pond somewhere and you wish it a good life. It's... I'm sure we've all lost pens before, on purpose and not on purpose. Still thinking about the pen, Kane goes, quote, that would be easy to follow if it weren't for the fact that I had a magical talking being in my pocket that could cut things with the ease of a water jet. I had questions, a lot of questions, enough questions to make a conspiracy nut call the feds. What was she really? Was she really a dragon? Did magic exist? If that's the case, then what magic did she have? Did that creepy rapper pastor guy know about the magic? What about the rest of the dragons? Where were they? Were they sealed inside of weapons like this one? Did she mean any harm? Could she take over my limbs? Could she kill me? Did she want to kill me? Did she want to kill someone else? What exactly was her deal? Why exactly was she here? And more importantly, what allowed her to exist? I forced myself to be focused through the rest of my previously failed class, but a go-kart battery lasted longer than my own brain did while focusing on paying attention to lectures. I must have looked like a wreck with how I was passing through the halls to leave for the burger truck. I was barely paying attention. Students moved around me. One of them held the door for me as I exited, and I forgot to thank him. Like, he must think that I'm crazy. Maybe next time I'll say it. Maybe next time I'll be able to talk. None of them knew what I was carrying on me. I didn't know it was even possible to tell them, let alone sell them on it. I can't believe he forgot to say thank you for someone holding the door. If this isn't a symptom of an absolute mental crisis, I don't know what is. It is just so much of the same thing, and it is also very self-involved. Also, he just keeps saying things that highlight maybe he shouldn't be in school right now, because he doesn't care. Like, he's going to skip class a lot. He's gonna pass the class this time anyway, but, like, he doesn't care. So Kane is angsting more as he walks until he runs into Imani, who startles him. Since he's out of it, He's like, oh no, I need to come up with an excuse. Says that he has Ganon again for class that he failed last time, and he sounds surprised by it. Again, I'm confused by this specifically because when you sign up for classes during your previous semester in college, because, you know, they open while the previous semester is still going, so you can sign up ahead of time, it tells you who is teaching the class. So when you're signing up for it, whether it's during semester or during winter break, whatever, because you could sign up for both, you're going to know who is teaching your class. You're not going to like wander into the class and then be surprised at who is teaching unless something happened to that teacher and the new teacher had to fill in and say like, hey, so-and-so got into an accident, so I'll be teaching this semester instead of them. But we don't have any of that. He just goes, I had no idea who was teaching this year. Is your mom signing up for your classes? You know, judgment. I'm just like, how did you not know? Because if your mom wants you to be independent and pass your classes, she may want you to sign up for your classes as part of, you know, your independence. Money invites Cain to come to a party that is happening, and he decides that he is going to show up, the dragon pen for calling him meek and scared by going to a party that even has alcohol, and he might even drink it, yo! Quote, I didn't really want to think about it. I wanted to get to the rest of the week over and toss the pen into a river and forget that everything regarding that thing ever happened. A party wasn't going to fix anything. I doubted that it would make anything better. My reluctance to go was only challenged by my desire to change, to come out of my shell a little more. That thing said that I was meek, huh? Spineless? Well, hell with that. I could party, I could have fun. That dragon didn't need to know I did, but damn, would I enjoy myself. I'd enjoy myself so hard. I'd have fun talking and drinking alcohol, or maybe I'd just chill and eat good food. Okay, maybe not drinking anything alcohol related. That still scared the hell out of me, but still, it was the first week. Nothing would come of having a little fun with friends. I can tell you that I made it through all of my degrees. Like, I hate doing the comparison, but I'm also just like, I'm trying to find a reality in this, and it's just like, I made it through all of my degrees without ever drinking alcohol, but this one sip that I had on my 21st birthday before I decided I didn't like it. But like, this bro is super overthinking everything, and it happens. Like, I get it, that's what you're doing, but like, there's only so much that a reader can take. That's what I'm saying. It needs to pull back some so we got more story. It almost feels like the character thinks that you have to perform a certain way, and there is only one way to be in college, and it has to be that, which is another part of his obsession and his panic of failing. Like, he has to be this archetype, which includes drinking. But bro, if you were that archetype, you could also possibly just fail classes, because that's the normal thing, dude. You can like... Anyway, he also thinks of throwing the pen into the water after having saying that he didn't want that power in the hands of anyone else who would be less trustworthy than him for it. So he's full of it pretty much. It kind of reminds me of the back and forth that happens in romance novels where they're like, well, I should dump him, but like, I like him, but also... And you're like, there's just no teeth to this. You're just making up a conflict that you're not going to have any action on because you don't actually want to complicate things. Because if you take decisive action, it actually creates conflict that you then have to fix. So a lot of books, especially by new writers, end up overthinking everything and writing everything as thoughts, which avoids the character making action, which is going to make them make mistakes that they have to get themselves out of. And for me, it's more boring. So they're sneaking into a stadium for this party because they don't actually have a venue, and there is an Airbird show that is going on. And by they, I mean Cain, his roommate Imani, and a bunch of other people. But he's got a plan with his roommate to sneak in. Watching jets and having a cookout just kind of adjacent to the party that's happening officially. They didn't get tickets, so whatever. The cops show up to kick them out because they snuck in, but these college kids feed the cops their delicious barbecue, and then the cops all just hang out without a problem, and they're like, you know what? No worries. You guys are awesome. Then Cain is leaving the party, and he gets grabbed by this man in a cloak with too many hands. It turns out to be DJ religious rapper guy from the quad. DJ Godman keeps demanding the pen be given to him to ease Cain's burden, and Cain then accidentally kills DJ Godman with the pen, turning him into sand and cutting a nearby bell tower in half. So we got a scene developing right here. How convenient that there is no blood in the destruction of this man, though. He panics and runs away into his friends, doesn't tell them what happened, just that he was attacked, and then he flees to his dorm. Quote, the group all exchanged troubled glances, but with a cordial okay and a take care from Penny, I made my way to the elevators. I needed answers or a coffin to lie in. At this rate, It might be both. All in all, Cain is taking his first time killing someone and seeing them kind of evaporate into dust very well. Cain then gets to his room where he and the dragon pin go back and forth. She informs him that that person was what is called a remnant of sorts and tells him to figure out why he was being hunted. She knows. So at this point, knowing what I know later is she's lying to him, which I don't really get. If she wants his help, then she should be telling him what it is. So this feels like a moment that was not developed when it was first written and then wasn't returned to once the book later decided that there's a cult involved and the remnants are involved with the cult trying to get the pen to kill the last of the dragons that got away when God was wiping out the dragons. So, because there's no reason that she wouldn't know what that was or why it was hunting Cain down in order to get to the freaking pen. And I get she's like trying to defend herself and probably keep some secrecy because she doesn't trust him, but he's also her wielder, and so there needs to be something. But you need to figure this out is not going to help her if the remnants keep coming. It feels like for a lot of this, the book has forced conflict, and it's in part because there's like a tsundere relationship going on here where there's no real basis for them to be at each other's throats the entire time. But again, it's like romance books that have them at each other's throats all the time just to have them admire each other later. And it's forced conflict that is repetitive and annoying because it doesn't make sense. There is no underlying reason why they should be doing this within the story because they have no objectives for it. It just exists. They're just fighting because they were told to fight by the author, not because there is actual character conflict within the story. Eventually, Robin, his roommate, comes back super drunk, and Cain has to help the guy get cleaned up because he partied too hard, something that Cain doesn't know much about. Cain gets interrogated by the police about the attack because video footage got scuffed just before the demolition of the building happened, so they saw him there, but they didn't see what caused the building to be collapsed. They aren't sussy of him or anything with the disaster and the murder, but they think that he is a victim. Cain lies to them about what happened with zero anxiety present, which is pretty interesting, but that he can lie to the cops about killing somebody without having any anxiety, but then gets anxiety just going to the bookstore when it's busy. The cops finish getting information from him and then let him go just fine. He reports what happened to him to Imani, and they go to get coffee. He is waiting for Imani at the coffee shop, talking to his pen dragon, who keeps insulting him about not being grateful for the power that he was given. I'm still confused as to what she even wants from him because she said that she wants someone else, but she also has said that he is a coward and she is not pushing him for somebody else. And she is also not telling him what the remnants are or what she needs, and she is antagonizing the only person that can help her right now. She claims that he is her window to coming back, but what does she even want? She doesn't pursue anything to this desire of like coming back, repenting, anything. And then you put that on Sins of the Fire, the title of the book, and you would think that that would mean that her dragon self wants to make better the things that she did in the past that she feels like she did wrong. But she just later on goes, that was just like the old me though. I might have killed people before, but like, can't I just move on from that? I'm sorry, genocide is not an easily forgivable thing. I don't know why all of these genocidal book characters think that they can just be like, I'm sorry, that was the old me. Like, can I have a new life? Don't recognize the weight of what they're doing. So Cain tells Imani about the guy on the roof, but not that he is dead. He also cancels going to all of his classes for the rest of the day. How many classes does he even have in one day? Maybe it's Friday and he doesn't have any classes. College is usually spread out, classes staggered to like Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday, Friday, or one long class once a week. It's not like actually, I don't think I remember any classes that were like every day of the week, but I know that there are certainly ones that are every day of the week, especially maybe in upper division degrees when you're not an undergrad that's doing things differently. I don't know, I'm just confused as to like how this is set up. I wouldn't have to be thinking about how the college system works if I was more engaged in the story. I'm so sorry. Also, for somebody spending so much time panicking about classes and failing, I mean, he's really not doing anything to help do better in his classes. So he skipped the classes to go grocery shopping instead with Imani and just complains about the smell of fried chicken. And then they shop and complain and shop. Quote, we went around a traffic jam of customers. I didn't know why the younger guy was driving an automated cart instead of the elder black woman in front of him, but alas, the young guy sat, seething behind her as she shuffled along with her daughter. He probably deserved it. The guy had 2 functioning legs. That's a way to totally... How do you know his legs are functioning? They might look fine if he doesn't have, like, a cast on, but you don't know if they work. You don't know what his deal might be. That's such an unnecessary comment to just make this character complain more for no reason. Imani finally bugs him to talk about what's on his mind, so much that this just reads like transcribing something someone actually did, and there is nothing happening. It reads like a first writing project in the way that you literally just keep writing what you know that's happening in your own life, but with this magical aspect added to it. I should know I did that as well when I was kind of 17, like 16? That was when I was seeing a therapist. So, because I gave him that writing, and he was like, very interesting, very interesting. He tells her about the pen being expensive, but not the dragon. She tells him that he should meditate in the student lounge. And then they watch YouTube videos together in the student lounge until Imani goes to class, and Kane is like, well, I'm not dying, so cool. Now alone, he's panicking again about the dragon pen. I know. Does he ever stop panicking? Is the whole thing just panic-ridden? Yes. But he doesn't know what to do with his stupid pen. So he argues with himself that it's a great weapon. A weapon for what? He doesn't even know what the weapon would be used for. And what do you need a weapon for as an average college student? This is dragging because there is no motivation for him or her. He's not trying to solve what she needs. He's not trying to solve why he was the one to find the pen. He's not asking, why am I the wielder? What does the wielder mean? Is there any special thing with that? What can I help you get? Why are you here? Can you tell me anything? Like, he's not doing anything. He's just in his head being like, what do I do? 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 Ad nauseum. He gets a call from his mom who says her and his dad are proud of him no matter if he fails. So all of that just pressure at the beginning of the book really wasn't necessary, but okay. He then takes a nap where he falls asleep and wakes up wondering if the dragon had joyrided in his body because some of the things that happened in the dream were a little bit sussy to him. More bickering between the dragon pen and Kane as he asks her if she took over his body. She doesn't know what year it is. She says that she doesn't want to talk to him anymore, but if he needs her help, then he just needs to say something. Why would she help him? She's like, I don't like you. You're really annoying. You're a worm. You're a coward. You're beneath me. You're inferior. But if you need a lifeline, just let me know and I'll be there. These characters don't have personalities to me. Like the main character has a personality because it feels like a self-insert, but it's just existing, which makes sense if you're like a person, especially if it's a self-insert, because when you're in college, you're just in college. Like, you don't need a goal. You're just a person existing. But a book is different than life. And so you have to have like the story that you're telling the reader and showing the reader instead of just existing. And so like, I don't know how far into this book we are. It's almost a 600-page book, so it's not like a little walk in the park book, but you've got just like nothing happening, and the dragon doesn't want for anything, and the dragon is not talking about her enemies or her wish for forgiveness or salvation or whatever, so she doesn't die and doesn't keep getting hunted the way that she is. She doesn't express anything to like get her own independence from being a pen, or like why her soul was bound to this. Like, was it just luck again that he found her and it could be literally anybody? And why was this pen that was theoretically in the Crusades, this dragon pen, how did it end up in North America / the United States? Meanwhile, as this conversation is going back and forth, Kane is like, as this self-conversation is going back and forth, Kane is like, I'm gonna utilize her. But like, for what? What does he need to utilize her for? He is not a warrior. He is not a Thundercat. What does he need a pen lightsaber dragon for? He messages his friends to ask about the dream that he had about the dragon. None of them take him seriously and taunt him about waifus instead. He's supposed to be doing schoolwork for his first week, I don't know, but gets distracted by playing Switch games with his friends instead. He's also talking to the one of them that said they failed bio because it makes him feel better about failing his own class. And they had to wait a whole year to take Bio 1 over again. And I'm like, Bio 1 would be a general education requirement. I don't know why they wouldn't have that every semester, but educational developmental psychology would be offered every semester. That doesn't really make sense to me. I know this is nitpicking, but it's just because there is nothing going on in these conversations are flat. So I'm not buying anything, and then I'm just questioning everything that it tells me. Kane agrees to game just to forget the rest of his life for the time being because he just can't with it right now. And honestly, with how many excuses he makes, it's not surprising, and how much he procrastinates, it's not surprising that he's gotten a D, and I'm actually kind of surprised that he's only gotten one D in his 2 years of school so far. It's only the first week, bro, and you are stressed out during the first week, which is pretty much entirely reading the syllabus for most classes. Your parents aren't even pressuring you anymore. Then we time skip around for a week. He goes home to eat dinner with his family and sees the neighbor's dog get its head caught in a gate, and everyone is panicked around it. He begs the pin to help him get the dog out. She's actually surprised that he actually wants to help someone and grants him strength, and he gets the dog out by ripping the gate open, and everyone rejoices. Cain lays down and connects with the dragon via dream. You know, he's doing this. I told you, we're cuddling the pen, we're stroking the pen, we're licking the pen. And by connecting with her in dreams, he ends up in her mind den where she exists in a bodily form that is a spiritual bodily form. She learns that Cain just wants to make the world a better place and decides to help him, and then flings him back into his body when he asks to go back because he needs to wake up. Cain goes to class, and Mishara, which is the name of the dragon mommy, is being a helicopter parent to him, making him focus on his work. He gets all of his stuff done, and then he goes to bed early. Then she stops him from flirting with a girl in one of his classes. It's very, very strange that she's interrupting that, because she's like, there's no time for that right now. Put it back in your pants. When he's studying, he's panicking more about not focusing enough, and Mishara gets fed up with listening to Cain repeat himself over and over again, pleasing her, not about doing his work, and she's casually like, what's wrong with you? So he takes the pen to the bathroom and slams her against the wall, choking the crap out of his pen, being like, how dare you say that to me? How dare you say that to me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? Also, he gets mad at her for taking control of his arm, because at some point she did take control of his arm, and he does not like that. Meanwhile, threatening to yeet her if she doesn't get in line, because then she'll just be a pen abandoned again. Isn't that what she wants because she doesn't respect him? That's the question. I don't know why I should care about either of these people. Neither of them have given me a reason for, like, what they're trying to achieve. I mean, he's just going to college. Like, good luck, bro. But do I need to experience your college experience? And she is just, like, not sharing that she evaded. And, like, she doesn't have to go into her whole background, because God is trying to wipe out the dragons for the holy war that she lost after killing a bunch of people. But I digress. She's just... whatever. That's realistic, okay? She's not addressing the things that she actually did wrong and is just hiding from all of it. And it's just like, look, I didn't do anything. I don't freaking know what's going on. But of course, his losing his temper at her is one of the tropes I've talked about before, where it's like, oh, I was just testing you. I really like this side of you. I want to see more of it. I'll behave as long as you're not that little quiet mouse anymore, baby. Again, Cain gets sucked into the inner realm of the pen to look at Mishara for real, and she agrees to work with him and answer his questions after bickering with him more, because she just perpetually bickers with him for no reason. She also shares that she can see through his eyes. So when they're traveling, they're basically sharing his body. So he shares his senses with her, not just his eyes, his taste, his hearing. So he's going to, like, take her on a date, basically, of him eating stuff later, so that she can taste it through his tasting of it. We're nearly halfway through the book now, and no one wants anything. We have no plot, no movement, no climax, nothing being worked on. Mishara doesn't have any sort of clear goal that motivates her, whether it's to work for or against Cain. Cain is not doing anything but going to college, and has nothing going on working for or against Mishara. And it's just hanging out. It's worse because Mishara is thousands of years old or whatever, but she obviously hates Cain and has no reason to cooperate with him, but she still does because reasons. Cain then goes to make breakfast while Mishara tells him that his body and soul are basically conduits for her magic, and if he makes himself stronger, the magic will be stronger. He tests some of the magic that he has. Then he sits down eating, knowing Mishara shares his senses. That was the point of the breakfast that he made. Basically, this is a breakfast date, like I said, and she was being a tsundere about it. When he sees that she liked the flavor of waffle and sausage, he's like, I got your number, sweet scales. Then we turn into Walking Simulator, where he's just walking around the campus, the city, looking at everything to show Mishara that she is still being a snooty tsundere. The Walking Simulator is continued when he goes to class, and the class assignment is to walk around more and look at more things, and so he just goes around more, walking around and discussing everything that he is looking at. Kane tries to talk to the Dragon Pin about being vulnerable with him while this walking is going on. So we have no establishment in this world, in this book, that dragons are any different from any other animal in existence. We don't have any establishment of, like, why their emotions would be different. And he's, I'm assuming, going off of the assumption from fantasy novels that he's seen of what dragons are supposed to be like, and so that he would assume they can be vulnerable. But it's kind of like, why would you assume that an animal has the same sort of emotion and vulnerability and things like a human does? And the same human reactions, like the same values, the same everything, because even aliens would be different and have their own values. What does he know about dragons that would suggest that any of this is correct and that he can talk a dragon into being vulnerable with him? They bond more, and she says that she prefers him over any of the others that she had, because unlike most of her handlers previous to him, he sees her for her and not just as the weapon that she is. Like, he sees her heart and makes her feel special. They then go back to school. Anyone wondering what happened to that cult and the police investigation going on? No? It just disappeared. It kind of just pops up here and there as it goes. It makes me think a little bit of Shadow of the Conqueror, when, like, the shadow people suddenly show up at the end, or, like, randomly here's a little bit of communism, here's a little bit of a communist bad guy, and it's like, for some reason, we're going to the meditation room now with our pen, and after meditating, there is more bickering for self-confidence. Quote, Mishara snorted, as she always does whenever I ask a foolish question. You performed well for someone who never meditated. I was starting to become privy to her method of complimenting. Smiling, I basked in a waking feeling up for the moment. Thank you, Yeah, Rob, do not tell me you needed to hear that, Mishara sneered with the tone of a mother cat. Do you need to be coddled for everything? Have you no confidence? My eyes rolled as I stood up. I was going to say I appreciate it. That is not what you were thinking, liar. Well, maybe I need a boost every now and then, okay? It's hard for me to say nice things to myself. We're 288 pages out of 588 pages. What are we doing? Tell me why this dragon owes Kane any compliments or anything to, like, raise his feelings about himself. I get needing to pick up another person or other people at times, but this relationship just isn't established for that. The reason her, like, lifting him up like that, why would he expect that of her? She has not been a person of comfort or a person of motivation or somebody that even showed that she liked him to any extent, and yet he's sitting here expecting her to compliment him. And they agree after that to do more meditation because it'll help him strengthen his mind, which will strengthen their magic. Then he's in class now discussing Egyptian stereotypes and how stereotypes change perception. Kane is asking Mishira questions about Egypt since that's where she is from. She has no idea how people stop believing in magic though, since she lived through the ages. I don't know. I don't even know how she ended up in a creek in Denver or wherever this is. Denver is a made-up place. I don't know where they actually are in this. They talk the whole time, and Mishara is impressed that he knows some things about Egypt. She girlishly giggles because you needed his heart to go bump bump. They plan a movie date. There is a lot of fiction that exists. Fantasy, like mental fantasy, like personal fantasy fiction, not like the genre fantasy fiction, where the love interest can read the mind so that the main character, never has to express themselves. And it's not a gendered issue, clearly, because this is written by a male, and then you also find books written by females that do the same thing, where they find a romantic partner, a romantic interest in the book that can read their minds, so they never actually have to learn how to talk, and that romantic interest can tell them everything that they need to hear that they are too afraid to actually say out loud, to ask for more information, to work through their issues of what they can't communicate, which is really just everything. And that, I think, is also something that outs it as a personal fantasy to me. Now, that may not be true, but that is something that gives it that kind of vibe. So he's taking Mishara on a date now to like an arcade and to go and get something to eat. He's gonna eat something super special, including a donut, because he's like, she's never had a donut before, I bet. I don't know when her last wheelchair was. She may have had a donut. He gets startled and drops his student ID, so there's not going to be any donut. Now, it's hard to go and get it, because he's going to some place where you need to show your student ID in order to get a donut, or it was he had to go and get a student ID before the office closed, and so they couldn't go to get donuts. Either way, no donuts. He then gets jumped by a couple of thugs running a scam that one of them was hurt in a back alley, but there are 3 of them there trying to rob him, and he uses his dragon powers to fight him off. It scares them. He scares himself. He gets his phone back, and is this the Spider-Man arc? No, it's not. This is just another random sub-story that's like, okay. It should be noted that with Mishara's power, he fends off more than a couple of bullets, which he just, like, hits the bullets with his laser blade, and then they just, like, pew, 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 pew. But that would mean that they went somewhere else, because they landed somewhere else. So, we're never told if there were any other victims to the bullets. So, chaos from the gun attack. Everyone is running, including Kane. Kane is panicking, as always, over the situation, though this one is reasonable, because gun. And he was, mugged or attempted muggery, and arguing with Mishara about whether or not to kill these kids that had been attacking him, and how he couldn't do something so horrible as killing these kids, and not even taking into consideration that they are armed thugs pulling scams to get people alone to rob them at gunpoint. This is going to cause other people to fall into danger. These guys have no qualms with attacking kids, attacking anybody, actually, because he's also a college student. They continue bickering with this not good example of their different dispositions. Quote, "Excuses." Her voice was strong enough to carve out a mountain. "You cannot hope to survive if you do not value your life. Should a lion sink its fangs into your neck, would you be concerned over his teeth snapping? No, I'd be dead. You would not be if you saw its claws bared at you. You would not be had you beheaded it. That's different. Min Sijak? How then? It's an animal versus a human being, you ass," I shouted, trying not to make my voice too loud. "A lion will attack for food, and I'll defend myself for my own survival. A human will have something else going on. They have a family, or maybe a sibling, or God. Maybe I don't want to take a person's life. Did you see the look on that kid's face?" It's not good, because if you're gonna argue like Kane did that the attackers needed the money, everybody needs money. Animals are also fighting for survival. Humans are fighting for survival, just survival in a different way. Secondly, he pretends that killing a lion takes away nothing from it, like a lion doesn't have a family, like animals don't have families, like animals don't mourn or, all die because somebody else in their family dies. You kill a male lion who is a leader of the pride, and the babies are all going to be killed when the new males come in to take over the pride. So you kill a male lion, you're killing more than a single lion. And he's going to go over here, and he's going on here that the thugs might have a family. So do the thugs' victims, and the victims that they will make in the future. I'm not saying that Kane has to be rational at this moment, because he's emotional, he was just in a crisis, and he's trying to fight with this voice in his head that is also not a good example of things. However, the dragon is not helping, and this comparison is also not good. Kane argues for some arbitrary reason that the attackers who threatened his life deserve to live. Quote, "Yeah, but of the thousands of thoughts in my head, one of them might have been to take out a couple of stupid teens. Even now, I feel like I could have or should have. They deserve consequences, but it shouldn't have been death. Death's final. It'll wreck the lives of their families or friends or something, and I certainly wouldn't be able to live with the guilt, stupid as they are. They deserve to live. They threatened your life. What happens if they go and threaten somebody else's life and point that gun at somebody else? They didn't just point the gun. It wasn't just a prop. It wasn't just a threat. They shot multiple bullets at Kane with the intention of harming, if not killing him. With the intention of harming, if not killing him. And he's like, no, they deserve to live. Radical thought. If you attack somebody with lethal power, you forfeit your life by the other person responding to the power the force that you brought. That's, maybe too radical, but I'm just saying, how do you argue, hey, they deserve to live when they didn't think that you deserved to live? And this pops up in a lot of stories. I know that I've talked about it before on this channel with some of the books that I've reviewed because I've seen it pop up before where it's like, bad person does something really, really bad. But the other person, the main character, usually in an attempt to look righteous and an attempt to look good, they're like, look, I can't harm that person. I can't punish that person, or I would be just as bad as they are. I'm going to let these bad people free who have killed people, have genocided, have raped a bunch of people, because if I put an end to them, then I would be the bad guy. No, you're stopping future victims. And by pretending that not getting your hands bloody by doing what needs to be done to stop criminals, and then patting yourself on the back is like, well, at least I didn't kill anybody today, so I'm better than them. No, you knew that they were going to go victimize other people, and you let them go so that you didn't have to have that responsibility. I'm not saying that it's easy, because it's not. It's not easy being the one that pulls the trigger. But I'm sick of these stories that set abusers free, or that set criminals, violent criminals free, and then like pat themselves on the back as if they've done something great because their hands aren't bloody. But this will be a matter of personal philosophy. 100%. I know that like this doesn't actually have anything to do with the actual story or critiquing the story other than critiquing the ideas, which characters are allowed to be wrong. But you know, I'm here for the conversation, for the philosophy, the story, the ideas that are put together, and the stories that, and the ideas and discussion that the story inspires. So that's why we're here. So fortunately, lucky enough for Kane, the kids are caught by the cops just outside of the alley, and Mishara continues to lecture him about not making a decision, but he did actually make a decision, which was to not shoot the kids. It's not that he didn't make a decision, he purposefully chose not to do it. Kane just gives up talking to her and lets her continue to just yap his ear off at that point and lecture him. Then he's attacked in an alleyway by another person Mishara calls a remnant, and he panics and faints while trying to escape. Now in Mishara's realm, she lectures him about passing out due to fear of failure. Says that he doesn't fear failure, he fears the consequences of failure. That's just semantics at that point. Come on, Mishara. She encourages him that someone can't succeed without failure, and he's comforted. Then he comes to, and there's a sandwich laying in his lap because I guess somebody thought that he was homeless and tossed him a witch. I don't know, maybe paramedics might have been looking into him with the crime that just happened here, and the people are right over there, and they'd be like, hey, there's a guy over there who's like flinging bullets places, and he's kind of scary. Kane tells all of his friends about what happened. They worry. Kane's mom says she's going to talk to the mayor about the dang violent youths that are running this city now, and Dad is going to go and get him a gun. I don't think the campus is going to be like, yeah, keep that in your dorm room. I mean, I guess they're going to be like, keep it on the down low. Imani is now going to escort him around, and Kane hangs out with Imani. He returns to his dorm, and he and Mishara agree to work together and help each other now because he's worth it. I don't know. He plans to be brave, so she's changed her mind about him. Kane and Mishara then go to a local park where he practices shooting his pen magic like a gun. And Mishara glazes him about how creative he is, like no warrior she has ever met before in her thousands of years of existence. Or hundreds of years, I don't know. I don't know how old the dragons are. Just a little bit of property and environmental destruction as he shoots rocks and trees in this local park that people actively use. Also, just more inane talking as he says that he wants to be a better person, remembers that people don't treat Mishara like an individual, and they bicker again. Quote, "What about you? Don't you feel the same way?" "I'm already a perfect being," the dragon huffed. "Ha! I have nothing to work on." Smirking, I began charging up the next shot. Arrogance is unbecoming of a queen. Bang! Instead of chipping, the rock's top blew nearly completely off. The remaining hole left over by a blast made it look like a piece of modern art. "Oof, did I get under your scales? You impudent," snarled the dragon as I shook my arm, bones rattled from recoil. "This is not arrogance, this is pride. Something you lack." No, I don't lack it. I turned on the last target, lifting my arm. I feel pride right now. I'm proud of myself for getting this far and understanding how the magic stuff works, and I'm proud that I figured out a way to better use your magic. Most importantly, I feel pride in becoming your student because then I can feel proud of impressing you. This is reminding me, like, there are multiple times throughout this that it just makes me think of the magic system that's in Shadow of the Conqueror, which is just like you imagine it and it happens. Like, there's no actual source to this, and there's really no limit to this. Like, there's going to be a fake limit, just like Dalen's four bands, but you know, all he's got to do is imagine go-go multi-band, and then he's got more of them. This, he's like, hey, I can shoot off 12 bullets, which it also made me think of the spirit gun from Yu Yu Hakusho, but it's a pen. It also just made me think of, like, Harry Potter shooting, you know, balls and lasers out of the end of your wand, because it's a pen. So, like, we'll fix that. Don't worry about it. After all of this testing at the... I don't know what happened to your face there, buddy. I'm gonna need to fix you a little bit. After all of the testing at the park, after all of the practice at the park, it's time to test other skills. I don't know. This chapter is a long training montage that, again, took me back to Shadow of the Conqueror, where Dalen was testing the limits of his abilities. But this one just has Kane flirting with the dragon in his head while also doing the things. Meanwhile, you know, Dalen was all by himself and just saying go-go band, whatever, and seeing how far he could push it. He learns that he can run super fast and also heal himself. They get back to the dorm and bicker more, quote, "You call me arrogant, and here you are whining about your little failure. Little I, and yet you persist. In truth, you have persisted for weeks on end. For what? If all you will do is complain when you fail to succeed the first time, what is the use of continuing? Is this how you react to adversity? If this is how you react to adversity, then there is no reason to continue unless you crave chastisement." I avoided looking at the pen, my mind conjuring Mishira's piercing gaze. If this would be how training would go, it wasn't worth it. I would rather forget she existed than have to bang my body up to figure her out. At the same time, I had already put in so much effort into learning about her that it would be asinine to just give up here. What? You've put in, like, maybe a week or two into understanding her. You can be like, I don't want to give up. You don't even have to do this ultimatum of, like, it needs to work now and us get along completely, or else I should just ditch her. That's just somebody that doesn't know how to deal with adversity, isn't okay with adversity, and just has a throw the baby out with the bathwater sort of mentality. Like, he shouldn't have this responsibility and the weight of this on him because he can't actually handle it, and he has no ability to cope with anything that he is doing. He can't even cope with getting a D. He can't even cope with going to school. Mishira forces him to think about why he is motivated to do anything against his failures, and he has a self-help talk. Quote, "The answer was clear as day. As I laid in bed, I opened my mouth and closed it. Such a realization was harmful to my own pride. In the end, she was right. I succeeded in few places, but at the first sting of failure, I wanted to quit. Not because it was hard or because I wasn't comfortable, but because I didn't want to feel like I couldn't measure up. No one thought that I was a failure. Only I did. Whatever image I thought others had about me didn't matter. They shouldn't matter. The only thing that mattered was my own growth, and in order to do that, I needed to accept that I screwed up and that I needed to do better." He determines that he should care about how he feels about himself over other people's expectations of him, and that he's proud of himself for this revelation. Now it's time to eat. There's more practicing with his magic. Kane tells Mishira that he wants to include her in his life because he really likes her. He says platonically, of course, but it packages it more as if he's being coy to what he really wants and doesn't realize that he or she have feelings yet. He then goes home to dinner where he brings Mishira to the table in one hand and the fork in the other. Can you imagine how, like, weird it is to be sitting at the table and just, like, your son has a fork in one hand and a pen in the other, and it's just like this? But also, mom is going to be like, why are you sitting with that pen at the table? His mom doesn't even ask what he's doing with the pen. You would think that she would. I made my comment because, you know, you'd think that she would since she made a deal about the pen before, but now she's not going to say anything. And it kind of tells you how this environment doesn't really respond to him, because you would also think that, like, all of the destruction at the park would also equal something, because they had the slashing of that bell tower, and now all of a sudden all these trees and rocks in a local park are being destroyed. So you think it would be connected, but nobody in the story actually responds to the setting or what is happening, because they're all just tools to push the plot as opposed to living in this story. Grandma brings out dessert, and Kane just listens to his family be racist at the neighbors, but doesn't want to interrupt and make them mad, so he's like, whatever, they can say what they want about the white neighbors, I don't really freaking care. Other dinner discussions include restricting the rights of under 18-year-olds, to which this entire family is also apparently for. Quote, Granted, it was an insightful conversation. Councilman Gerald Slocum had to push to get a curfew on youths under 18 years of age, thanks to my mom's connections. But with other lobbyists bent on constitutional issues, it would take a while before this action was followed through. We liked Slocum. He understood the issues. We did not like Councilman Thomas, who was worried it would hurt the brown folk. The discussion took a turn within a short time. I was eating, but everyone was in agreement that there should be consequences for any violent crime. I can't believe that it's called lobbyist bent on a constitutional issue. I can't believe it calls it lobbyist bent on a constitutional issue to have the ability to leave your house. Y'all like the government's overreach, I see, as long as it's in your direction. Mom's also over here popping off about killing kids that threatened Kane, and he's just like, amen, yeah, you would. Whatever happened to his panic of they have families? Now his mom is like gonna go gangster, and he's just like, hands off, she's great. It just goes to show that it was performative when he was objecting to killing those kids, because he just doesn't want the blood on his hands. But he really has nothing against it so long as somebody else is doing it. Then they go to play board games with the family, and it overwhelms Mishara as they are all so nice, and she has never met parents like this before. Tell me how this isn't soft dating the pen. The anime name would be My Girlfriend is a 1,000-Year-Old Pen Dragon. Turning into bed, the dragon not only said that Kane was the most creative person she'd ever met, but also the kindest, most thoughtful she'd seen in eons. Quote, I was by no means perfect, but I was raised right, as my family would put it. One morally upstanding wielder, a solemn chuckle made me realize my error. You put too much faith in your kind. She glazes him more about how good his heart is, and he says that she's important. They fall asleep together, feeling good about themselves and each other. Kane is going with Imani to visit her brother in what Mishara calls the slums. Kane notates shady people, and Mishara wonders why anyone would even live here. You know, if she knows the slums from her time period, then she would know that people don't choose to live there. They just end up in circumstances where they do. So the brother is actually a tree. Something bad apparently happened to him, and we don't know it yet, and the tree is a memorial. Imani's telling Kane about how her boyfriend went down on her, and Kane is like, dang, I want intimacy, but it'll happen when it happens. Imani expresses how she's worried about Kane dying like her brother did, and then gets mad when she sees that he still has the expensive pin on him in this bad neighborhood, that people are going to try to come and take it from him, and they will kill him for it. He makes an excuse to leave, and then they say that they'll meet up later for dinner. As he's walking, now away from Imani, Convenient Remnant appears again. It's interesting that none of them attacked him when he was making a bunch of noise at the park and was fairly unguarded, and he was practicing and then also out of energy at one point, but now that he's in a neighborhood with people in it, they show up. Also, they're just considerate bad guys. Quote, he was waiting for me to be alone. A strangely respectful decision. A commotion in the middle of a busy city would draw too much attention to the powers being shown. In addition to that, innocent people would be hurt. I didn't want to hurt people, and maybe David didn't either, but that didn't make me feel any safer. He's calling the Revenant David because it reminds him of David and Goliath. He does defeat this harpy-esque man he's calling David, and funny, his wounds from running were so bad that he was limping earlier when he dragged himself around, but they all disappeared very quickly without a word and have no effect on anything when he gets into battle, because, you know, when he dragged himself to bed after getting beat up by the other gangsters. Mishara then heals Kane's wounds and compliments him. He flirts and thinks about how warm she is. He meets Imani for food and says that she's got a free trip to Japan. She won a contest, and she wants to take him with her. She's worried about him, and Kane decides that he eventually needs to tell Imani about the dragon pen stuff because she is so worried about him and keeps thinking that he is doing stuff like her brother. We time skip now a few months forward, and we have no idea what is going on with school. The remnants are obviously not a threat because they're just hanging back. So, like, in the first 2 weeks of school, we get attacked by 3 remnants, one of them a harpy-esque man, and then for months, literally nothing happens. But the cult church leader guy disappeared. You would think that the cult would be, like, running around the school looking for where DJ Rap God Daddy, whatever his name was, used to be, since he's not showing up anymore, and maybe it would mean something. But also, how are these remnants made? Do they not just go back to the church and then get reborn again? That would have been freaky, right? If, like, the remnant that he shot with the pen and killed the first time just showed up on campus again and was like, that would have been freaky. But we don't know what any of these people are and if they can still exist after they get defeated. But literally nothing is happening for so long that we're just watching videos with Mishara. Kane is then in a mental place with Mishara, and she flies him to Egypt with her and projects her memories of the first pharaoh who found her so that he can see kind of her background. She goes over how she messed up and was seen as a traitor, is attacked, and basically chased out of Egypt to go live her life somewhere else. Great that she didn't just get killed as a dragon. This is before she became soulbound to anything, and she was just like a little lizard baby. Then he wakes up before hearing something more painful. It's finals again. Guess we're going to go and take that class that we failed last semester. We are at 75%, and he takes the test more confidently. Then there's a festival going on outside where he thinks that he sees a remnant but gets caught by a friend, so he can't chase it. And interesting that we put so much emphasis on taking this test again, but we literally just had a montage of Mishara like pressuring him to study, but it's not actually a big part of this story at all. In the meditation room, he gets with Mishara in her mental plane. It turns out to be more exposition of Mishara's past, fighting in the Crusades, and I just don't know what this has to do with anything right now. Part of it includes that the Catholics opposed dragons during the Crusades, so the dragons, as a species, sided with the Muslims. Quote, regardless of our breed, worm, serpent, basilisk, shenlong, we were being slaughtered, lumped into the same category by Catholics who saw us to be demons. Many traveled distant lands to see us killed swiftly. Eggs were trampled upon. Drakes revered as deities were assassinated. We were hunted and murdered. Something else to note here is that Mishara seems offended that the Catholics of the Crusades considered the dragons to be demons, but girl, the dragons sided with the opponents of the Catholics and were ripping them apart in war. What did you think was going to happen? If even one of you, and I'm not going to assume that there was not a single dragon that attacked a person, because why would there be a single dragon that did not attack? How could you assume that all dragons never attacked a Catholic before the Catholics attacked? Because there is not a, are they a hive mind? Because there is not a single species in the world that operates that way. But it's trying to make it look like, from the way that it's setting up, that the dragons are just completely innocent and that the Catholics just attacked dragons for no apparent reason. So then the dragons sided with the Muslims to attack the Catholics. But also somehow the Muslims still lost the Crusades even though they had dragons on their side. I want to know how that worked, because you got fire-breathing giant dragons that can wipe out entire villages in one breath, and somehow still lost to the Catholic Crusaders. Mishara cries about losing her kin, which is this the same thing as her thing earlier saying that lions don't have families, so it's okay to kill lions but not humans with a gun? Anyway, she's crying about her dead after talking about how she and the dragons were killing humans. Quote, of course, one dragon would decimate a village, and an army of humans, with how wily they were, would find many ways of slaying a dragon until it became a sport, manipulation, and destruction. We had many different tools at our disposal, and we continued to make better tools to improve upon our survival. Dragons had brute power, but they would not or could not evolve past that. Even if they learned to trust someone, that would just open their hearts to be stabbed. In the end, they were beasts. Beasts with power to destroy, but beasts that could not change past that. So somehow they're superior to everybody, but also not superior to everybody. Like, they're just pure power, but also It's just a way to make it so that the dragon's lost, but we're also the most powerful thing that there is. That's what it feels like to me. And it's not sympathetic. Somehow she thought that her kind could attack humans with no consequence, and when consequences came, she started crying about how bad humans are, which is kind of ironic considering she's getting mad at Cain for his not being able to deal with consequences. So she angsts at him about war from hundreds of years ago. He hugs her and melts into her warmth. I guess dragons aren't cold-blooded. Like, it says that he melts into her warmth. And he wonders if she understands what he is doing and conveying with a hug. Cain is watching a movie in his Discord server with his friends, grilling Mishara mentally about her family and friends and past lovers, when Imani sends Cain an article about the kids who attacked him, stating that they were stopped by some kid with a pen. Imani confronts Cain about doing something dangerous and secretive with his stupid pen, and no one knows what's going on with him. Cain won't tell her, so she worries more that he is like her brother, and she gets mad. They have a kerfuffle between each other, and he logs off, feeling bad that he can't tell her anything for her safety. He goes to bed, where Mishara praises him for his hard decision-making of not telling her what's going on. Cain calls his mom and tells her that he upset Imani and is afraid of losing her. Mom says to give Imani some time to come around, and if she doesn't, oh well, you'll get new friends. Brutal. I guess we just kick people to the curb over here. After talking to his mom, he travels on public transit, where an old man named Obadiah, yeah, let's not trust the Obadiahs of the world, stops to, because all of the cult members always have Amish names, let's be real. Obadiah stops to talk to him, all weird. Cain doesn't trust this guy, and not because his name is Obadiah, it's just because of the weird way that he speaks, and so we're profiling this guy. Good thing that he's just a sandman with a message. The guy says, destroy the dragon. Cain is assuming that this guy's a Catholic, coming to get revenge and finish off the last of the dragons, which is Mishara. He gives Cain a card for his church and then disappears. Cain keeps the card against Mishara's suggestion to drop it. Didn't the other guy, the DJ guy, give him a card and like nothing happened with that? Cain brings this information to his friend to start researching the Church of New Haven. These friends are not Imani, but the ones that he plays Switch games with. He determines instantly that it is a cult just from its name alone. Quote, "Oh yeah, that's definitely a cult," he mumbles, leaning against the table. "From the front page alone?" I asked. Eric nodded like it was obvious. "Think about it. Why call yourself New Haven? There's one heaven." "Technically, there's multiple," Dante corrected, not looking up from his phone. Eric amended his sentence. "Well, yeah, but a new one? I don't know about that." "Haven and heaven are two different things," I added. "But in this case, I don't think the distinction is that far off." "You'd be right. Listen to this." Penny cleared her throat and started to read off the page. "Once you get past all of the basic service shit, and About Us says, our humble beginnings date back decades to when a group of like-minded individuals came together in search of deeper spiritual fulfillment. We seek the light of the Lord and wish to open the hearts of others to bask in his light. And it's all thanks to our heavenly head of the church. We provide everything from spiritual guidance to communal activities to foster a strong sense of belonging among members. Once you are fully basked in his radiance, will you be reborn?" Penny paused, letting the words sit. I didn't need to dissect the statement, as Dante and Eric began to do it for me. This is so on the nose and out of nowhere. Considering we're at 83%, it feels really forced when there was no build up to this church. Like, yeah, you have the random remnants and the church rapping guy, but there was no mystery to unsolve. There was no building towards this. There was just like random thing. And it needs a final showdown now for whatever, because we're near the end. So here we are. They find the church and want to go there themselves, as they say, calling the cops will do nothing since everyone there is white and cops never do anything about white people. This is a particularly blat aside, considering we spent an entire chapter or two on stereotypes, and the cops have been involved in this and showed up at the college. I guess some stereotypes are okay and others are not. And this includes like Cain going on and on and on about how terrible stereotypes are and they hurt people, which is why they even talked about it in regards to Egypt. They're going to go do something about the cult, but don't know what yet. Then, after looking into all of this, the other kids invite Cain to go and play Smash Bros with them, just to get off some steam. He says that he will, but he's got to do something first. In his room, Cain asks Mishera about the cults and the people who seem to know her and her kind. Mishera basically says, I don't know these people, but they're evil. Stop questioning me, stop asking questions, or I'll stop talking to you. Mishera is being awfully manipulative with these lines, with the don't question me or I will cut you off. Cain's sussy of why Mishera is hiding things, but before anything further can happen, the FBI knocks on Cain's door. The FBI questions Cain about his being around the tower and the pen in his possession, touching it even, and they find nothing, because they're examining it to see if there's anything weird about it, and this is in part because of the story told by the two thugs, or the three thugs, which, why are they going to believe a couple of guys with a gun that are robbing random people that guy's got a magic pen? They're part of the Illuminati, let's be real. They leave and Cain is paranoid that his roommate is working with the feds, so he starts tearing the room apart. What a weird jump to make. He's been involved in multiple crime scenes now, and he thinks that it is his stoner roommate, who knows nothing of the pen he's taken and threatened against the wall in a bathroom, but he thinks the stoner is the one that turned him in. He tells his friend that he has been talking to a girl who says that he should defend himself, and the roommate tells him, good for him, but if he's getting paranoid enough like this that he is ripping the room apart, he's got to dump her because this is not good. Cain asks his friends what he should do about a person who thinks that who he thinks has made him better, but also might have done some bad things in the past. I like how genocide and war is often, turned down to but they just made a mistake, in some of these stories, especially when they are a hot love interest or a self-insert. Guys, it's just a little genocide, but he can fix her, right? He can be the one to be it's all okay. They mostly say to dump this person, but don't sacrifice who you are. The whole thing with, he knows that she did something bad, like genocide and war, but also doesn't want to say what it is, because then the friends will be oh yeah, 100% dump her. So he's just what if you know somebody who did something bad in the past, but you're a better person today because of their involvement in your life? Can you forgive a little bit of bad choices? They mostly say to dump this person and don't sacrifice who you are to remain friends with somebody else. You're the one who matters the most. Cain gets on a bus and makes his way toward the cult church all by himself, not even bringing the pen with him. So he's got no means of protection, not even bringing the pepper spray his family sent him with. Can we activate the pepper spray and give it a purpose in the story, please? Something. Also, this book feels like it is falling into a stereotype presented in When No One Is Watching, and that is something that I satirized in Actual White People, the short story I wrote, shared on this channel a while ago, as it's just a picket fence community of stillness that is spooky dooky because of white people living in it. Quote, I walked past a dainty little sign saying, Welcome to Havenfield, that served as the sole entrance into the neighborhood. The castle exterior of the church peeked past the umbrella of trees overhead, a canopy that filtered the sunlight into dappled patterns on the ground. The street was eerily quiet, save for the distant hum of lawn mowers and occasional chirping of birds. There were no children playing outside, no barking dogs, just the stillness that felt almost oppressive. Quietly, I walked into the neighborhood, making my way towards the main landmark of the town. My family always talked about the importance of knowing where I was. Normally, it was in regards to wandering around in a city. I had to be wary of basic stuff like alleyways, suspicious characters, certain neighborhoods, and so on. The more I walked around in an area, the more I felt like I didn't belong here. That danger wasn't just in plain sight, it was all around me. The trees were all too green, the homes were too nice. The lack of trash tumbling around should have been a good sign, since everyone I knew complained about trash in the city, but the lack of it made it feel artificial. It wouldn't be a problem normally. My parents' house was in the suburbs, but there was imperfection that made it home. The rusty metal fence of the Hendersons was an imperfection. The weeds that grew between the cracks of the pavement during the summer were imperfections. The dry patches of grass made by dogs peeing in one spot were imperfections. As I approached the church atop the hill, the black asphalt turned to cobblestone, a proverbial red carpet, before I came to the center of the neighborhood. I kept my head on a swivel, trying to be the lookout for anything that would be out of place. The distant sound of a lawnmower were loud now, but my eyes trained on a blond man with a trimmed beard. He wiped the sweat from his brow and looked at me. He smiled, waved. I waved back awkwardly. I looked to my left at a little park bench under some trees. Children were frolicking and laughing, playing tag as their parents sat on a picnic cloth beside the bench. They both waved at me too, grinning that Cheshire cat smile Obadiah gave me. Past the cobblestone, people wandered around the block with pleasant smiles and jovial gaits. A man in a black suit gave me a loud and a hearty howdy as I walked past him. People in the city would usually just pass me by or give me a hasty hello. Again, it should have been comforting. More people meant that it should have been more lively, but it felt fake, and the more I saw it, the more I felt like I was being watched. Every hello made me feel like I was under a microscope, my every move scrutinized. The smile seemed too wide, too perfect, like they had been rehearsed 1,000 times in front of a mirror. They talked, but had nothing to say about anything. They spoke about the weather, the state of the world, friends, family, health, but there was no depth. What does that mean? Also, like I told you, it feels like when he's paranoid. He is so paranoid. I think his roommate Robin is right. He needs that, but it might not be just the girl that is making him super paranoid. And this could work with being uncomfortable if it had built into this, but the stereotyping of this entire neighborhood came out of nowhere. There was just like the one god rapper guy that showed up and was kind of weird for a bit, but like nobody tried to befriend him. Nobody convinced him to come here. He came here on his own. And like, we're supposed to believe this entire neighborhood is in on this cult that hasn't bothered him for months. It's just so out of nowhere. And it's such an extreme, it's so jarring. Soon enough, the dude is also going to be freaking saying howdy doody. And if you're wondering about that, go watch my review for when no one is watching. Like, go do it. It came out a while ago, though. So, like, sorry about whatever is questionable in there. But for real, the stereotyping here leans into stuff like Get Out, which is a completely different vibe than the rest of this, and also the cover of this book. But the cover of this book doesn't match the interior of this book at all either. Maybe if it's also just a jarring thing entirely to have this pop out of nowhere, and then also to have a lecture on stereotypes in this book literally, and then spend the last 10% of this stereotyping a white neighborhood. I mean, like, yeah, do it, but it's just a weird juxtaposition to be thinking about for what's going on in here. Cain enters the church and Obadiah was waiting for him. Again, I kind of wish that it just started with the weird white people earlier on campus. That was more than a bad 60-year-old rapping religious cultist who died the first time he talked to this kid. Like, please, something. So he meets with his lead priest, who tells him that they're trying to return the dragons to where they belong, which is to kill them, and have them be judged by God. So we're going to assume that dragons have souls in a way that other animals do not have souls, in which they do not get judged by God, but dragons get judged by God. I want to know this origin story of, like, how were the dragons created to be also in God's image? Like, what is the origin here? Cain is super upset by this guy saying it and says that dragons aren't like other animals and are more like humans, but doesn't explain how or why this is or where he even learned it. He also gets offended that the Catholics defended themselves against the dragon attacks. Quote, Father Noah's shoulders shook with a coarse laugh. Most Christians know nothing of what happened during the Crusades. Reading my expression, the priest hummed. Well, I'm a bit more well-read. He sat up, stretching his creaking back out. His eyes never left the stained glass as they were centered on the cross. I assume the dragon told you how they fought the Catholics, how they sought to save their own lives. I also assume that they did not tell you how many dragons tried to destroy us. What does it matter? Catholics cast the first stone. The priest turned his head. His inviting eyes had a sudden grown cold. And who was it that blighted the skies with smoke? Who burned down villages and poisoned crops with ash? My tongue caught in my throat. That's just a misconception. They all couldn't. The serpent fooled Eve once. Do you believe that she would be fooled a second time after that? Like, yeah, you have to choose who are you going to believe between these people. And the dragon would possibly say that she is not guilty, even if she was guilty. It depends on, like, how trustworthy she is. Like, nobody knows what the truth is in this situation, to be fair. But genuinely, what did you expect? Like, he was talking about not killing a guy with a gun earlier because they have a family, but he doesn't really care about the dragon destroying these villages with people in them. Like, I can believe the cultists on this one because the dragon has been so gung-ho about killing other people that why would I not believe that she was also an aggressor and other dragons were an aggressor in the Crusades, you know? So, but he is okay with defending her and her genocide and her attack and her part in the war of the Crusades, but he's not okay with stopping thugs that tried to shoot him over his wallet and his phone because they might have a family. Have Catholics been, not Catholics, yeah, have the Crusaders also just dropped down to that low point? Because we got some conflicting ideas here that it's like hefty topics, but it's not taking the time it needs to explore the ideas that it is pushing forward. The morality in these arguments is unsound. I'd also like to mention that this keeps calling them Catholics, but this is obviously a cult. And to me, it seems like someone who didn't do research to make a Catholics legitimate, but wanted to use Catholics so that they could use the Crusades. But it is also just calling them a cult. And maybe he is. Maybe that's how he feels about Catholicism. Again, it's just this is how it's coming off. Quote, I tried to find some footing in all of this, but it felt like I was wading through sand. Mishera had said it herself, that she was one fortunate enough to be raised to have empathy for the common human. So, like, the dragons don't give a frick about humans, and she was one of the few who did. So, like, why would they not attack people if people felt like they were a threat to the dragons? And you say stuff like this, like, I should feel sorry for the dragons that they are dead, but she is the outlier for actually caring about humans. So, I don't know. It doesn't seem like the humans did anything wrong with eradicating the dragon threat. It just seems like people think dragons are cool, so they shouldn't be eradicated, but they are a danger. With no self-control or desire to control because they don't give a frick. I don't know. I don't know what we're supposed to do with this. Quote, the ice from Noah's eyes disappeared as he closed his lids. Because, child, God wants her. It is the truth. From what I know after so much prayer, she is the only dragon to defy God's judgment. She must answer for her sins. Can we get some background on this whole, like, Christ died for the souls and sins of dragons? Did that happen or did that not happen? Did the blood of Christ not count for dragon sin? And what counts as a dragon sin? Are dragons bound by the 10 Commandments and, like, the Word of God? Does that mean that dragons can be Christians? Like, what does it mean to have your soul saved as a dragon? I don't know. This is so bizarre. I get that it's trying to, like, mix these mythologies together and also to humanize dragons in a way so they're not just animals in some way, but it also just doesn't make any sense. Cain stupidly goes into the basement alone with the priest, no weapons, and he even says that it's dangerous, but his curiosity overpowers how dangerous it was. Just letting you know that he knows what he's doing, but is doing it anyway. The basement wall has a story of Leviathan on it, and the priest tells Cain how the dragons populated, destroyed things, and then God called for them to be destroyed for the destruction that they wrought onto the world. But Mishera ran, which is why she is being chased down now by the church. No way she doesn't know this. How was that not shown in all of these interactions, and she never once trusted Cain to give him the truth when she needed him as an ally? Like, there's so much here that could have pushed what his goal was, or what her goal was, which is building this relationship in order to get safety because she needed it so she wouldn't be turned into these guys. But she didn't do any of it and then spent her entire time bickering and insulting him when she could have been using her access to him to help him get through his bad grades and, like, his anxiety, and then been like, look, I've helped you. Am I that bad of a person? I don't think so. I helped you without asking for anything. So are you going to trust me, or are you going to trust these guys? Can you help me with these guys? So there's, like, so much that could have been done to build a relationship and also get her foot in the door, whether she's telling the truth or not. But none of it happened. And now we're just thrusting this on us in the last, like, 5% of the book. The church requests that Cain bring Mishera so that they can send her to judgment. He isn't sure what he wants to do or what to believe in. He's not sure if he even believes in God, but he's going to go home and ask Mishera about her past. When they talk about what the priest told him, confirming that she did destroy an entire village, she said that it was an accident as she didn't have full control over her powers. I'm not sure how she escaped God snapping all of the dragons out of existence when he has divine intervention kind of thing going on where he can Thanos snap and you're probably gone. Somehow he missed Mishera and he can't find her in all of the earth, even after hundreds, if not thousands of years. I guess the Christian God in this would make mistakes and does oopsies and also doesn't know everything and also would fail at playing Where's Waldo. Glossed over. The world building just isn't doing it for me. So Mishera and Cain get into a fight. Because she is like, why can't I be forgiven for my mistakes? It's not like murder and genocide are that big of a deal. And he seems to be thinking truly of turning her into the church so that he can have peace again, and is trying to convince himself that he is on the right path. He doesn't even consider like how much she helped him to learn how to focus, and that doesn't even come into play with any of this of him reflecting on their relationship. The next morning, Kane asks his roommate the same question as many other philosophical novels have asked, quote, "I don't think I'm going to be at all." Weakly, my eyes met his. "Robin," I murmured, "what would you do if a person with good intentions did terrible things in the past?" Robin rubbed his eyes and sat up more. His voice still danced, the same lackluster tone it always did. "Man, that's a heavy one for the morning, but I guess it depends on what those terrible things were and if they're trying to make amends." "What if they can't?" I asked, somehow desperate to get some sort of validation, some way of holding on to this semblance of hope. What if they're dangerous and being around them puts you at risk?" Robin answered quickly. "Well, shit, dude. Then I'd drop 'em. Nothing's worth the risk." Well, there it was then. The same advice everyone else gave. The same verdict. It made sense, of course. If I was in a relationship with someone abusive, then they'd say the same thing. It only made sense then to take care of it myself and my own well-being before I took care of anyone else. Silly me thinking that I could salvage something so irreparable. It didn't matter how much good she brought me, nor how terrible her life was. She was a danger, and that was that. I would like him to truly weigh what it is that she is accused of doing. It's not that she is just a danger. It's not just that she did bad things in the past. It's she murdered an entire village. And I think that's also something that a lot of these books that deal with these heavy topics like this, like Shadow of the Conqueror, is they don't actually approach the weight of what these people are doing while they're also saying, hey, just forgive me. Because in order to really analyze these situations, you have to look at the depths of the actions and the importance of what they did for the reality that they are, and then you examine it from there. You can't just lighten the mode of what it is they did and then be like, well, can't we just forgive them? Well, no, I'm just so stupid. I'm so sentimental. I'm the one that wants to forgive and everybody else just can't get over it. And it's just if you would examine truly what it is that you are saying, then we could have these discussions, these philosophical discussions on redemption or salvageable or any of that, because you can have those discussions, but you have to approach the weight of what they did truthfully and not put it behind a facade of pretty words or lighter words. Kane decides that he wants to do away with Mishera because fighting God is just not a battle that he wants to take on, and if God wants her dead, that's probably good riddance. That is his argument. So it's not even he agrees with anything. He's just well, in the case that God is real, I don't want to be involved in this. How is Kane going to fight God when he inevitably keeps his dragon waifu around? Because there's no way that God doesn't know where the dragon is. Let's be real. There is no way. How do you logically make sense that God doesn't know this is happening on Earth? I need to know. Or does God just not exist and this really is just a cult? They could be. And this is all just BS that the dragons did all of this. But she still admitted to having killed the village. So at least if they're saying that the dragon needs to die because God says so, that could be the lie. But it's not a lie that she and other dragons attacked humans, because she's the one that said that. So the dragon is manipulating him now, and he is I'm not going to let God control my life. Meanwhile, he lets this dragon in a pen control his life for a year. And probably half a year. And she is still doing it. She keeps asking questions about their relationship, if anything of it was real, if him taking her to meet his family and play games, if any of it ever mattered, and how he could do all those things and then just turn her over to be killed. He doesn't want to give her up, but he can't think or he will fight what he is supposed to do. So he's you know that it's coming. This is just to put the doubt in his mind. To no one's surprise, Kane doesn't let the church destroy Mishera and runs off with her. He tells her how he feels guilty for Imani's dead brother because it was gang business scam that had gone wrong, and Kane told them where the brother was because Kane told the victim of Cam's scam where to find him. That's the brother, Cam. And so he understands making mistakes and getting people killed because he did the same thing when he was an ignorant child who told a gang where their cheat was. I don't think that's the same thing at all because you didn't know, whereas, you're in the middle of a war and you're actively killing people, and she also is Well, we don't normally have compassion for humans, which, okay, it's a learned behavior, but like, so he's trying to teach her vulnerability when I would think dragons don't normally have that. Anyway, basically, that is the end of things. Oh yeah, he makes up with Imani. There's flirting with the dragon at the end, and they plan to destroy the church's artifacts of evil. Basically, that's the end. There's just an open ending that the church is going to chase after Mishara and Cain in the next book. So I'm going to guess that God isn't all about the killing of the dragons, and it is only the cult, and they are using God because that's how cults operate, as you do. So that is the book. The genre, I would say, is slice of life, teenager, school, college existential stress, light fantasy in a modern setting. The hook. In the first 50 pages of this book, what is set up is Cain is a college student studying child education to become a teacher. He has incredible anxiety towards everything to the point he overthinks everything. He takes a test in what seems to be his sophomore year, though it is still a 100 level class in his specialty area, and he fails it. He goes into a panic and thinks about quitting college. Because of it, he also feels like a failure of a human. So here we have what is likely the biggest antagonist of the book, or what seemed like it would be in the beginning, which is Cain and his own anxiety. This is from the first turning point in the book to see where it will go next, as he is forced to make a decision. With that said, I'm not invested because I don't know why Cain cares about becoming a teacher. He just has been obsessed with his classes, and he doesn't really seem to care about this. Not only that, but this book comes off as more of a therapeutic journal to me than it did a story with drives, as even the preface talks about the author's struggles in school as they were undiagnosed ADD and how that felt like being a failure. And that's like a real issue, but I don't feel like it was translated well into this book and this story that didn't really have a forward action to like mix the story of his personal struggles with the magical side and also with college. These are all deep feelings and something worth being explored in fiction. But to me, it is hard to get the reader invested in such a self-interested story when there is nothing else going on around it for us to go with the character. It also comes off as very slice of life and just existing in a way that is repeating conversations, chat logs, and nothing really happening in those first 50 pages to move the story. With language and writing, the pacing is awkward, with time skips where seemingly nothing happens between them, though we theoretically have high stress, like with the going 6 months between Remnant and like the cult getting involved, and they aren't really marked at times, which reads confusing. The narration circles the same thing a lot with his continual thoughts of anxiety, and with the book reading almost 600 pages, it feels very slow. While there is considerable value in making sure to characterize and show anxiety in the narrative as it gives more credence to the character and makes that character stronger, it can also be too much when there isn't much else going on in the story and the majority of the chapters is just him being anxious in his head between going to classes. There just is no tension to keep the reader going forward. Bizarrely, it also spends so much time with incorrect lectures like, quote, stereotypes are or can be based on physical appearance. Example, a dragon would call a human fleshling, as dragons are scaly and humans are not. And, quote, after all of this time, humans still cannot evolve from their preconceived notions of others. Somber was her tone, yet I can't help but feel surprised. This implies that humans weren't always so judgmental. Those phrases, like this implies humans weren't always so judgmental, but it says humans can't evolve past their preconceived notions. Those are opposites. It would imply that humans have always been judgmental and they've never been able to be non-judgmental. With the stereotyping, calling somebody a fleshling isn't a stereotype. It would just, at best, at worst, whatever. It would be like a slur, but it's not really a slur. It's just a phrase. It's not like a stereotype would be like all humans wipe their butts with their hands. Like that would be a stereotype. Descriptions. There weren't much for descriptions. This book did more on describing feelings via cascading thoughts than senses, and it did so to the point of repetition. World building. For me, the world building was weak. For the most part, it's just a kid going to classes, which I obviously had some issues with and asked questions about the logic behind the classes and the failure, and so I didn't really trust it. I know this is a stupid question, but why didn't he just get an F in that class rather than a D if he was going to fail it? It doesn't make a difference, but it would have been stronger to just say he got an F and actually had to retake it for getting an F. How did he get 0 bad grades until his junior year when he's having as much difficulty as he does, waiting a year for a GRE like Bio 1 to come up again, but not knowing the teacher of his class until the first day? day buying books at the crowded bookstore when you're anxious about the space and that anxious about failure. And then you have this dragon who for some reason acts like a human and is expected to feel like a human, which Cain is totally allowed to do and just project his ideas of what he thinks a dragon is. But then we would need like a contrast, and instead she just acts exactly like Cain expects her to act. So then he obviously just knows how dragons are. We have no point of reference for the dragon lore in this story. Maybe it's just because Cain's delusional himself that he hears this voice and immediately treats it as human, but I don't know. But there is no world building on either the dragons and how they work or why they work the way that they do. We just have them being involved in the Crusades, or why they soul-bound itself to Cain or the religious stuff. It was just kind of there when it needed to be. We also didn't get an explanation of the beginning prologue thing, which I'm assuming is the Crusades, but it never became important or anything to do with like who Mishara was. And this is a first book in a series, so it could be explained later, but there's just so much going on here that doesn't really connect, but that is just awkward. This book also showed that it didn't really care about certain things. Like, as it entered the church, it kept using pastor and priest interchangeably when they are actually different things, and it should have picked one to stick with. Characters. Cain does a good job of being written as someone with severe anxiety that nearly makes him debilitated in every way by overthinking everything. Some might find this to be relatable because of that, and they experience the same thing. Others may find it annoying because it focuses on it for too long without anything happening. The book never establishes Cain as a particularly religious person, though I think he is supposed to have some sort of religious background. However, without expressing himself as any belief, it makes this... However, without him expressing having any belief, it makes this read a little less effective. Quote, "Could I be full of sin? Sure, I may have downloaded songs using a YouTube converter or looked up naked women or men for references, and nothing else. Those would be sins, right? That's probably it. He didn't know anything else. A scare tactic, a damn effective scare tactic, too. What is he scared about if he's not religious? Like, if he doesn't care about sin and hell, like, why would they have any effect on him at all? When it comes to Mishara, there is a clear sexual romantic interest with her, and she comes off a bit as a fetishized mommy-dommy type waifu that made me think of anime dynamics where the woman is the super powerful, confident, hardened, pushy stepper, and the man is the please step on me type, passive, fairly typical in harem animes. That's the dynamic they came off, and she's also tsundere, but she like really wants his attention, but she's like cold on the outside. Dialogue. This book is dialogue heavy, and it is too much dialogue that doesn't actually amount to anything for me. Some of it could have given character building, but this book is just too long for nothing going on, and the dialogue feels like it needs to be cut down, as well as some of the descriptions and the chat logs. They're just there. Plot. It takes a lot of time for it to get going, and I feel like between the prologue and the cover, readers may feel tricked by what's inside when the book actually mostly takes place with college drama with an anxious main character dealing with self-doubt and severe anxiety and a slight lean into a religious villain ultimately. He doesn't really deal with his anxiety. It's not really part of the story, but it is heavily there in the very beginning of the story as kind of a kickoff until it eventually disappears. I don't understand why Cain is the chosen soul for this pen. Still waiting on that, which may be discovered in a later book, but I feel like that might have been something that Mishara could have hinted at for why she wants to work with him. Also, rather than making it his third year, I think this would have been better if it was his first year and the transfer from his high school to college, as that is a very hard thing it could have been a hard thing for him to adjust to. And this could have been his first semester and he failed one of his classes, and that just like hit him when he never failed in high school. But high school is a different ballpark. I don't think it really helped for him to be in his junior year for this, especially with the way that he acts. Because then it also would have made more sense for like how weird he is about the bookstore, where maybe he didn't think of this stuff yet, or he's still getting a hang of classes and signing up for classes, and his mom maybe helped him sign up for classes, which is why he didn't know who his teacher was going to be. Like, there are so many things that I think it would have benefited if he was a first year instead of a supposed junior, because he would have been like, okay, I know kind of what to expect. Not that anything ever got better for me necessarily in college, because I was like, reading the syllabus always freaked me out. But, you know, after you get past the first or second week, you're like, okay, we're in a rhythm now. It's fine. It's fine. It turns out the entire thing of Cain finding Mishara was just luck as the story went on, and there is no chosen one in this. It's just sort of straight luck that he stumbled upon this pen in the middle of modern era New Jersey. And the whole plot involving the Muslims and the Catholics and the crusade at the end of this is both disappointing and feels ill-planned, as the background doesn't make sense and it comes out of nowhere. It feels kind of like how Shadow of the Conqueror, again, just threw a shadow attack of shadow people in at the end because Dalen needed to save the day, and so here it was all at the ending after spending the entire time being self-obsessed. Overall, my headcanon for this book is that Bro failed a course and had such a mental breakdown that he literally started talking to himself as a pen to make himself feel better to cope. And because all she does is cheer him on and make him feel appreciated and make him do what he knows he needs to do via words, he is just whispering to a pen the whole time, and everyone is going with it if they see him with the pen, because at least he's doing better, and hopefully someday he'll grow out of it. That is my headcanon for this book. Anyway, that was Sins of the Fire by Phoenix Ward. Have you read this book? Will you read this book? The link is down in the description below if you would like to get it for yourself. Check it out. Talk about it. Either way, I'm still looking forward to your thoughts and the discussion. With that said, have a great weekend and don't die.
To my children, Tommy, Ike, and Annabelle, if you forget everything else I ever said in the lifetime we shared together, I need you to remember 3 things. 1. Minimize violence done to and by women. As givers of life, it's against their nature, God's design, to do harm, and every act of violence done to them is meant to break their souls, turning what should be a giver of hope into a black widow, a woman who destroys the life and the mercy of her care for no other reason but the corruption of her own self. It is only when you come across these kinds of women that you should put them down, for they are no better than the men who tarnished them. However, take no glee in what must be done. Finding any life so far gone, a black hole is where someone's heart should be, leaves only one solution: the mercy of death, and it's a tragedy when it happens. Make no mistake, a woman's love is the most powerful thing on this earth. It can start wars, end them, and change the devil himself into someone God sees worthy of giving a second chance. She don't owe this love to anyone, but she do carry it around with her so long as she's living. That is why the devil will do everything he can to pervert women's nature and destroy their innocence. Of every crime you can commit during your lifetime, be it out of daring or necessity, for every defiance you may act out against God, government, or man, avoid harming the innocent. For the day that we become bloodthirsty beasts where love don't exist anymore is the day hell on earth has come. And as bad as it may seem at times nowadays, we ain't there yet. 2. Everything you do in your life will create consequences, both seen and unseen, extending further than you can imagine. Nothing you do exists solely within your arm's reach. Think about every decision you make, every action you take, because you won't know how long your choices will stalk you, be them destructions or blessings, rumors or history been made. The truth of the matter is, your life will be controlled not by the truth of what you've done, but by the way others carry on about you. And the thoughts of others are more real in the long term than what you know to be true. It won't stop affecting you just because it ain't real, and no matter the life you've lived, most men can't outrun what's written in them in ink. It ain't hopeless though. Be firm in knowing who you are outside of the noise, and live beyond the means of the news of the day. 3. There ain't anything stronger than a family you build for yourself. What you put together is worth fighting for. Protect your loved ones with your life, and they'll give theirs in return. Family ain't defined by blood, understand that. And for as strong as the bonds of your family are, know that you'll find just as much passion in the people who hate you. While you'll risk your life for those you care about, those who find your existence to be an insult to theirs will risk themselves to put an end to their affliction. As cruel as it may seem, a man who hates you will stop at nothing until one of you is dead. It's a mistake to believe anything different. Don't let you be the ones taken from, be it by outlaw lawmen or by someone in between. The only one who'll be looking out for you is you and your kin. Maybe there's another way to be, but in all my years I've seen the worst of man, I ain't found another way around man's desire to conquer against all else. There ain't a changing of that mind, and sometimes I believe there ain't the ability for man to change at all. least of all through lead or legislation. I ain't claiming to be right about nothing. On many things, I don't want to be right. But what I do want is for my kids to live a better life than the one I did and avoid the mistakes that I made while finding the truth and purpose in what matter more than gold in this country. It's my hope that by sharing the things I learned that my kids will be better than their old man ever was, and that what I done isn't what people remember me for, but who y'all are going to become. That'll be the legend of Bill Cassidy.